Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports. When
It comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Ags. David Nuño here with TexAgs Radio. Billy Liucci here on TexAgs Radio. Olin, Buchanan.
Make a mistake. We're not going anywhere. This is going to be a great program, and we're building it into a great program.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Do you realize everybody knows who you are right now?
I stand by what we do and how we do it.
Schools are like, we're freaking Texas A&M, man. Like,
that's about as pretty a throw-catch combo as there is.
I saw the safety roll, the slot fade. I knew where I needed to put the ball.
You had no other option but one hand at that point.
Yeah, man, 50-50 ball, I got to come down with it.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
Can we enjoy the good times? I know it's fun, or that's not fun. It's not fun, but I know it's contagious to be like, man, but if they do that against Ole Miss, they're going to get killed. I'm going to enjoy a victory, at least for a few days here. It's TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. The Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. I am David Nuño, and my partner here is Olin Buchanan, our Heisman Trophy voter and columnist extraordinaire. Good morning, buddy.
Good morning. I'm enjoying the win. I tell you, someone would say, well, you're being hypocritical because early in the year when they won, you were very critical of the win and putting it, talking about me and putting it under the microscope and saying this. But quite frankly,
isn't that sports though?
But no, this to me, at least from my perspective, it's kind of sad to say this, but the expectations changed
100%.
When I was watching those games against Miami and Auburn and Arkansas, I'm looking through the lens of can you win the SEC championship playing like this?
Yep.
Well, that's no longer a lens to look through. So now I'm just looking at it like, hey, can you get enough wins to have a good year? And so, I came away from that game feeling pretty good.
And a good year to you means what?
Well,
anything more than 7, right?
Yeah, anything more than 7. 7 and 5 right now is what you should
likely
be the bare minimum now.
Yeah.
Abilene Christian, look, that's a tap in, and Mississippi State's just not very good. If you don't win that one, they're going to win that.
It is time for Coffee Talk presented by TexAgs Coffee. Beat the hell out of morning by going to texags.com/coffee. You can text us the word TexAgs Coffee, and we'll pick the 12th person to text in on 979-693-1150. We'll get themselves a free bag of TexAgs Coffee. OB, with this game in particular, I 1,000% agree with you that our expectations has changed, which what makes the here and now the important part. Like, yes, we all wanted 10-2 and 9-3, which is still mathematically possible, right? They just got to win on the road. And it's interesting you said that people were mad for you being overcritical. People hear things the way they want to hear things.
Sometimes, yes, that's true.
Sometimes I am overly, what's the word I've read, that I'm overly nice about the A&M's program. Or like the guy who tweeted at us, I'm too critical of the A&M program. The bottom line is, this is not what we expected, but when it comes to one game, double-digit win, where the game was not in doubt after the second quarter.
Fourth quarter, I think it got a little bit dicey.
But in doubt?
It became a one-score game, and then A&M went down and scored, and so then it was over with, But, yeah, I still felt confident even when South Carolina cut it to a touchdown. I'm thinking, they're not. South Carolina's not going to keep them from winning this game.
So let's take it in parts. So what would you say was the big worry, if there was a worry, taking on South Carolina?
The big worry is Spencer Rattler.
Did he do anything?
He threw a couple touchdown passes, right? Or no, I guess he threw one, and he got him set up.
He threw one touchdown.
Yeah, and then he got him set up for one.
So his numbers, 20 of 33, 176 yards, one touchdown.
Just about like last year.
Yeah, and nothing big, right?
Nothing big, yeah.
And how other teams have beat A&M have been over the top or exploiting the secondary, right? That was not an issue. Now, they are undermanned, no doubt, right? But that same team has been in closer games with Georgia, a closer game with Georgia. So, look, I talked about this on the post-game wrap. I'll say it out loud to you. As I'm watching the game, the eyeball test tells me the offense didn't look good and Max was just okay, right?
All right.
You look at the numbers, you could say it's just okay, but his numbers weren't bad at all. 20 of 30, 249, a touchdown. I guess what
really 2 touchdowns if SEC video replay had a clue.
100%. 100%. And you talk about some of the dogs on this team. I don't know why I say it like that. You've got Anias that you can count on every play. You've got Edge Cooper that you can count on. Fidel Diggs had a nice day.
He always does.
You know, like there's a couple dudes that we just need to. And Bryce Anderson always steps up when he's out there.
Bryce Anderson's a heck of a player.
Like it makes you wonder what happens in Tennessee. Look, I know the offense wasn't there, but maybe it doesn't matter, but maybe it does matter.
Had Bryce played?
Yeah.
Oh, they'd have been better. Look, you
can't have him out and not be better, right?
Right.
I mean, yeah.
I believe that he's better than Antonio Johnson.
Okay.
In the role he's now. Here's something. They're moving him around, which I think just goes to show how versatile he is. But I mean, he's a heck of a football player.
He is.
And yes, you would have been better. And maybe if Bryce plays, you take a field goal off maybe even a touchdown off the scoreboard, but he couldn't have helped you on offense. Maybe he would have helped you get some better field position.
Maybe a little.
Which, by the way, that might be an issue moving forward.
Well,
dude's got to start punting it further than 30 yards.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the 3 things we wanted to see on Friday revisited.
Okay.
Do you remember your 3?
I know they were all very brief. I was like, no, I don't. I remember.
I can tell you mine. I got mine right here. Max get rid of the ball faster and better.
I thought he did pretty well.
Outside of the first quarter, that was improved. First quarter was a colossal disaster.
Especially that one series where he got sacked 3 times in one series.
Right.
I don't think he's sacked again, though.
He was not sacked again. It was the second series of the game, sacked 3 times. After that, they made some adjustments. At least they felt like it.
Did I say I wanted to see quarterback sneaks?
You did. Did you get it?
I got the quarterback sneaks.
And people were talking about it on the thread. They were like, Olin got his play. And they did it 2 times?
3.
Was it 3?
3, and they were successful in all of them.
So mine was Max get rid of the ball faster and better. I think he did that, especially in the second quarter, but first quarter not so much, but then they did, okay? Special teams be special. Well, they weren't special. They were fine. The punting was not fine.
The punting's been bad for 3 games now.
Yep.
And I worry about that moving forward when you play offensive teams. Don't give them short fields. But okay, go on.
We missed a field goal.
Which could have covered.
Yep.
Which could have covered the point spread.
And weren't we thinking at the end, come on, Jimbo, just kick the last field goal. Just kick it.
Yeah,
just kick it.
I want to get right. I need all the wins I can get.
Well, tell me about it. So special teams weren't special, but they weren't a disaster.
They were not a disaster.
And I said aggressive play calling that leads to big plays. They were more aggressive.
Hey, they got the ball close to the end of the half, and the first thing they did was throw deep to Anias Smith, and he goes and weaves and jukes and chucks and jives
42-yard
and all those
touchdown.
things. 42 yards, and he looked pretty doing it.
So I want to bring that play up because that play that Shane Beamer, and actually we'll do it when I talk about the turning point. That's what I'm going to talk about because that is the same scenario A&M has been in a couple different times that people got mad. When you don't trust your offense and you got 80 yards to go or whatever it was to go, you sometimes don't try to go for it, right? Like, I know people want aggression, but it's a 1-score game at that point.
Yeah.
It's 14-7, and A&M calls a couple timeouts.
Right.
And they get the ball back, and now they get it midfield, and they score better than midfield, right? So I get it, what it goes back to is you got to know your personnel. Now, the bigger question may be, why don't you trust your offense to go in a minute 40, 80 yards? But in that scenario, I think the down and distance and where you are on the clock makes a difference. I'm saying because South Carolina did try to move the ball, and it backfired.
Okay, I got you.
That's my point.
But it didn't look like it was going to backfire. Their first play was a 13-yard gain.
Yep.
Then an incomplete pass. And then, if Shane Beamer was going to kneel, I could understand because the pass rush was so fierce. And that pass rush, sack, or I guess drowning sack, punt, A&M, boom, touchdown.
So, by the way, that's newsflash. That's going to be my turning point because I think that was the turning point of the game. We'll get to yours in the next segment. But overall, very happy the way they played. No. Let me rephrase that. I'm happy they won, and I'm happy it wasn't in doubt to me.
I was very happy with the second quarter.
Second quarter was great.
If you could play,
the game was over in the second quarter.
If you play like this, if you play 2 quarters like you played in the second quarter, you'd be a tough team to beat.
42 points? That'd be fun.
Yeah,
Played the rest of the game off,
guys. They just
played
good football in the second quarter. The first quarter was a disaster.
The worst first quarter, the worst quarter of the season?
Maybe. Arguably.
Offensively.
It was a disaster. Second quarter was awesome. Third quarter, fourth quarter, they still don't score touchdowns in the second half, even though they did score one, but it got taken away because SEC officials are incompetent.
If that touchdown does count, does it make us feel that much better about the offense? No, but it's not as much of a talking point for the national heads to be like, 4 straight games, A&M can't score in the second half.
Well, first of all, I picked the final score on the radio on the pregame show to be 34-16. If they give him that, it's 34-17, and it covers. So, I think I'm more upset about me. I don't think it changes the way most people look at the offense if he catches it, which, by the way, he did catch it.
Another prop out there, Amari Daniels.
Amari Daniels played well.
He ran really well. He did.
I came away still with concerns about the offensive line and the run blocking, but they had Amari had a long run, what was about 29 yards?
Yep.
And then I think Reuben Owens had a 14-yard touchdown run.
He did. I mean, that would have been from 30.
Yeah. So there's about 40. It's about almost half of your rushing total came on two runs.
And the rest were like 2-yard carries.
Yeah. You got to do better than that.
But overall, Amari Daniels, 13 carries, 68 yards.
Max Johnson had a 4-yard run on a quarterback sneak.
He did. Look, we were never going to change our mind about this team.
Based on playing South Carolina.
Right. If they won 50-0, we'd be like, hey, that's nice. We can beat the bad teams, but can they do it on the road? They win by 13 points over a bad South Carolina team, a game that they could have scored again. They could have, right? They missed a field goal, and they could have scored down that last. They could have. So at the end of the day, take it. You can't play like that and win on the road, which is why we're all a little bit worried. Do you think Ole Miss is better or Tennessee is a better team? And who's a better matchup for A&M?
I think
Jackson Dart's a better quarterback.
Better passer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Tennessee was a better matchup for A&M. At least because I say that because I think Tennessee was pretty one-dimensional. And they ran the ball well. But you just said Jackson Dart's better passer.
He can run, too.
Quinshon Judkins. Oh, yeah, we know that.
He ran,
hey,
yeah.
DJ, you might want to have a spy this year.
That would help.
That might be a good idea. And then, Quinshon Judkins. Tennessee has a better defense than Ole Miss.
This is true.
So I'm
significantly better.
I'm anticipating more than 13 points.
Yeah.
Out of the Aggies.
More than 30?
I'm not anticipating that.
Okay.
But I am anticipating more than 13. But you know what? You look at this A&M defense with take out the Miami game, which because for some reason they had some inane idea about sitting back and read and react and not attacking on defense. But since that game, this A&M defense has not given up more than 24 points in a game. Yep. And that was to Alabama. So if you can continue that on defense and say if you can score 24 points, you should win in Oxford.
Where did I see the stat, though? A&M outside of Miami hasn't played an offense that's in the – and I'm not – look, my eyes tell me that defense can play with anybody. But they haven't played any significant offenses.
Wait, you know what? So
Ole Miss is in the top 12 of total offense, by the way.
Yeah, but I always say look at the company they've gotten to play LSU, and that helps.
Yep. Miami, number 19, as I'm looking at this, by the way.
But there's without a doubt there was a different approach to defense. But by God, they came out with the 3-man front the other day, and I'm like, what? How does that make any sense when I'm playing a team whose offensive line really isn't that great anyway, but plus it's already beat up? Talk about South Carolina. So I'm going to cut them a break by putting 3. I just don't understand. But anyway, okay.
Tennessee's offense, total offense in college football, 28th. So it's Ole Miss is 12th.
Yeah, but again, how much of that goes to is based on LSU, which everybody moves the ball on, and Mercer, where you scored 73 points.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably looking at their
I'm going to look it up right now.
Tell me how many yards Mercer had. How many did they have against Mercer? Where they showed no mercy.
Mercer team stats, my friend. They had 667 yards.
So almost 700 yards of offense against Mercer, and then they probably had 600 yards of offense against LSU.
Well, as Billy pointed out on the Luchador podcast yesterday, it was a tight game with Tulane. They did score 37, but it was a tight game
with a backup
Tulane.
Quarterback.
Okay, the Georgia Tech game, they won convincingly, and Georgia Tech seems to be playing pretty good football right now.
Well, once they got into the ACC.
Yep. They only scored 10 against Bama. And I would say that A&M is at the same level or better defense than Bama, at least front.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, I'm not saying that Ole Miss isn't good offensively. I'm just saying that it's not like they're this juggernaut either. They're not LSU.
Yeah.
And so I think you could go in there expecting to hold them to 24 points around there.
And have a chance in the fourth quarter.
And if your team can find a way to score 24 points, you should have a reasonable chance to win the game. I'm talking about a reasonable chance to win on the road. That's what I'm talking about.
Eventually, they're going to win on the road, OB.
Eventually.
And it may be this week.
It may be. You know what?
It may not be.
Eventually, they're going to get a winning streak on the road.
Yeah, they are.
And wouldn't it be awesome if it was this year?
If you want to be a part of the conversation, you can call us. We'll talk to you. Hey, and you can text us as well, 979-693-1150. We go behind the glass, and we say hi to Nick Savage. Nick, good morning, buddy.
Howdy, good morning, y'all.
What's up?
Well, one thing we never really have to worry about is Ainias Smith. Y'all kind of touched on him a second ago, but he had all kinds of movement in the A&M records this weekend. So he moved into the all-time top 10 at A&M for all-purpose yards with 119 he just had. His career total is up to 3,683 all-purpose yards, which is good for 9th in program history. He ranks 6th in career receptions, 8th in career receiving yards, and just passed Mike Evans for 7th in career receiving touchdowns with 18.
That's enough right there. Just past Mike Evans, right?
Yeah.
I wish, for many reasons, for as many reasons as dollars I would have won, that I would have won the lottery. And I'll tell you why.
Why?
Because Ainias Smith still has a year of eligibility left after this year. and I know he has NFL dreams and he's gonna. I would come up with the NIL package myself that would keep Ainias here. Ainias, I'm going to pay you more than the NFL is. Stay here. What a great player.
Great.
He's just a good, and somehow.
But everything about him, he talks great. He leads. He plays.
I heard him say something last week where he said, I go up to players and say, hey, you got to do a little bit more. And if you're not, why aren't you? Man, you need guys like that.
You do.
He leads by example. Now I guess he's starting to lead vocally, and he's like, golly, he's hard to. Ainias Smith in the open field is just beautiful.
People are watching us on YouTube again.
Hey.
They're back, guys. Where have you been? I mean,
welcome back.
Welcome.
My prodigal sons.
Where are you? Where have you been? Like, it's not like it was 3 weeks
just
ago.
Like welcome back, Cotter. Welcome back.
You kind of look like him, like an older version of
Gabe Kaplan.
Yeah, a little bit.
Not John. Not Vinnie Barber.
No.
More Arnold Horshack, probably. You're kind of like Juan Epstein.
Yeah. I think you just went there because I'm skinny and, it is.
Well, he's a Puerto Rican Jew. Your Cuban was the closest I could get to Puerto Rico.
Cuban Christian.
Yeah.
The double
Cuban
C.
Christian, yeah.
Let's check in at the Angry Elephant News and
the young guys have no idea what I'm
they're
talking
like,
about.
what are these old guys talking about? Jared Schultz there. Hello, buddy.
Good morning, buddy.
That was an awkward exchange. Wasn't that weird?
Yeah, well, you're buddies.
Hey, that's David's favorite word to use. I almost sent you a meme the other day about buddy.
Little buddy.
One of the biggest things that stuck out to me, we limited mistakes.
Miss Buddy Johnson, by the way.
Oh, I did too.
Good football player.
We limited mistakes. No turnovers, and we only had 2 penalties for 15 yards in the entire game.
Yeah,
you can't ask for better than that, but it's overlooked.
Shane Beamer brought that up in his post-game press conference.
What did he say?
He said, "Oh, what a great atmosphere! It was a privilege to coach here. And this is a great team, and yada yada yada. And A&M's that front
the best.
defensive line's the best. We had 10 penalties for whatever. They only had 2. You know what you can say. I don't know what you say about that. I'm saying, I'll tell you what, you committed more penalties than they did.
Yeah.
Look, the officials don't give A&M a break, and that goes back to the Max Wright catch. I'm sorry, Jared. Carry on.
You're good. And then I was going to bring up what your favorite thing ever, quarterback sneak.
I love them.
When I saw it, my thought immediately went to you. And we went 4 of 4 on 4th down, and quarterback sneaked 3 times. So
did you know I was a 7th grade quarterback for the Tigers in Dallas Elementary League?
I did not know that.
And
no.
my favorite play was the quarterback sneak.
I read that on your Wikipedia page.
Man, we were 2-6. So there you go.
2 wins because of OB.
Those Connor Cubs just wore us out.
Hey, we're way late for a break. Let's hit a break here. We will come back. I'm going to read Calvin's, or I'll have Jared read Calvin's message on TexAgs.com when we come back here on the show, because he wants to talk about a good win in the SEC, but there's a but to it. So we always got to get it, not get it to the butt, but we'll get into the butt. Never mind. You know what I mean. We'll get into.
I don't know what you mean, David.
I don't know if that was a great save, David.
We'll get into his counter.
It's
okay?
a segue that just didn't quite work.
Well, you know what? I do like pork.
Okay.
I like rib tips.
I do like rib tips.
Okay, see, if you just say rib tips, things are just like, all right, now we can start talking. We can get back on track.
Rib tips are some of my favorite food. And you know what? I went to Memphis one time, and I went to a place that was famous, Gabe and I, and ordered the rib tips. I went, this is really a disappointment, because I compare everything to Fargo's, and these rib tips just could not measure up to what you get at Fargo's. Fargo's may be the king of rib tips.
So
I'll even take that out, maybe. Fargo's is the king of rib tips.
Fair to say, there's certain restaurants that are known for, they have everything's really good, but they're known for that thing. If you go to Fargo's and you don't try the rib tips, you haven't gone to Fargo's, bro.
Tuesdays and Saturdays, I'm telling you. But look, by the way, Tuesdays and Saturdays, get your order in early. Call them up, reserve them, because they go fast. You'll thank me later. But yes, there are other things that you can get that you're going to love. You know, I've talked about before. I really like their chopped beef brisket. I've had their just pork ribs. Love them. You know, they got all the standard things.
They got it all,
the sauce. It's all there.
They're one of the top 50 barbecue joints in the world.
Yeah, because they're one of the top 50 in Texas, and that makes it the world.
You know that. Well, I was going to say that.
I went to the Far East to have barbecue.
Far East of Bryan?
Lufkin.
Oh,
and you know, Fargo's the best.
1701 South Texas Avenue in Bryan, without a doubt. The what?
The best barbecue in Texas, i.e. the world.
I bet you didn't know this for trademark.
Well, I did know it because it's true.
It's true. Go say howdy to our friends there, Alan, Belender, and Maurice.
Howdy.
Fargo's. Welcome back, everybody. It's TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. He's Olin Buchanan. I'm David Nuño. Jared Schultz at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. There's a message on TexAgs.com. By the way, however you consume TexAgs, thank you so much. We are very grateful, even for those of you who tell me you're not listening anymore. I know you are. Hey, Jimmy. But overall, we really do appreciate it, and however you take in the show, just continue to do that. And our YouTube numbers are growing. CW, The Zone, TexAgs.com. Let's go to Jared, though, who's got a message there.
Yeah, we have a comment from Calvin1 on the TexAgs page. She says, Nuño, I agree with the idea that a win over SEC team is good, but A&M's play for the entirety of the game after a bye week was not good. And says Jimbo is telling Buchanan the plays the call, very conservative and limited playbook.
All right, let's take this in parts. I actually thought during the first quarter, what the hell did they work on during the bye week? That's what I was thinking.
I thought they were still on the bye.
Right? But they did make adjustments. I have to give them, look, yeah, they came out flat and against some better teams. They're not down 7-0. They're down 14-0, 17-0 like they were last year for South Carolina. Right? So there is that. And by the way, when Jimbo says this and we say it, this is not last year's team. They're not that level of bad. Regardless of what you... Yeah.
Oh, no.
They're not last year's team. This is a better team. It's not as better as we want them to be, but they are a better team.
Yeah, like I said, again, with the exception of that unfathomable loss at Miami, they've had not just a chance, but a real good chance, like in your hand type of chance to win every game. And
I could argue that they one little adjustment and they win the Miami game.
What was that adjustment?
Actually blitzed. And
you know
what I'm saying? Like, yeah, Tyler Van Dyke, you're good at throwing. I'm just going to stay back here and let you throw.
Let you throw.
Yeah, no, come on, guys.
I'm going to put a true freshman one-on-one and not blitz the quarterback and see what happens. And oh gosh, it didn't work out very well.
That's a surprise.
Who would have saw that coming?
But this team, I don't know if I'm ready to say they're getting better. Right? But they're better than last year. I don't know if they're week to week. I say, oh, this is a better team. The offensive line this week was, once they figured out the right rotation, which I still have an issue with, but once they figured out, I think that they were better. Again, they gave up those 3 sacks on the second drive. They did not give up a sack after that. They're still struggling to run the ball. No Le'Veon Moss hurts, but it doesn't matter. You should be able to run the ball a little bit better than A&M is running. And Max should stay clean longer than he does.
Yes. All those things.
All that is yes. Yep.
But what happens when you give Max a little bit of time? You hit Ainias Smith in the open field, and it becomes a touchdown. And there was a time late in the game. Another long pass to Ainias.
Yep.
I mean, and Evan Stewart. I like that they went deep to him a couple times. One time, almost had the catch, but even if it's not complete, I like that you're stretching the defense, right? I actually saw some nice plays that I haven't seen before. There was a nice throwback, it seems like, to Jake.
No, nobody likes the word execution. I get it. But there's truth to it. But I will tell you the same thing I freaking said in April, in May, in June, and July. I don't care what the play is. I mean, I do care. I want it to be creative. But at the end of the day, if you block, you move the ball.
It's hard to execute when your quarterback is almost getting executed.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd throw that out there.
You and Johnny Cochran, very similar.
Well, okay.
You think that many ways.
I probably wouldn't have taken on that client, but okay.
All right, let's.
By the way, my gloves do fit.
Can you tell me what your turning point of the game was?
I think you had a really good one, but I'm going to go and say Reuben Owens' touchdown. They finished off the drive. I thought they would. Maybe it was something before that, but I like Reuben Owens' touchdown.
That made it 14.
They gave you 14.
14-7.
And I don't think I ever thought they would lose after that.
Yeah.
Once they got the lead, I thought they were absolutely in control. There was a hiccup here and there, but I really felt like they were in control after that.
By the way, I'm not saying that they're moving the ball like a Mike Leach offense in the second half, but they are moving the ball. They're just not scoring.
They're just not scoring. Well, that's been kind of a situation. Well, look, they're not an offensive juggernaut, but it is not uncommon to see the Aggies move the ball, from 25 to 25, 20 to 20. It's just, finishing.
By the way, I haven't mentioned this, but I should. Buzz Williams is going to start doing his weekly hits with us. We should probably talk a little Aggie basketball at some point this hour. Let's hit a break here. I'm going to tell you a personal story, get how Olin would react when we come back, plus some more football. We got to get to these text messages. I appreciate you all texting in. We haven't gotten to those. Right now, we're talking about the Charge apparel. You like polos? You like tees? I mean, what else? I mean, hoodies are cool. I wore a hoodie this weekend because it was cold. But I love polos. I wear them often on this show. I love T-shirts. And the Charge apparel's got the best ones. They're Aggie owned and operated, guys. A couple of core dudes that are – is that the right way to say core dudes?
Yeah,
is that
sure.
fine? Yeah, a couple core great guys.
I'd rather be called a core dude than what they used to call them. Maybe still do. CTs.
Oh, okay. Well, core dude.
I'd rather be a CD.
A CD
instead of a CT.
Well, Travis and Tucker care about this community. They care about the 12th man, and they care about veterans all around the country. That's why they donate 12% of their total sales to veteran nonprofit partners where they focus on mental health initiatives. As I've mentioned, the polos and tees, they fit perfectly no matter how big, tall, skinny, or you may be. They're going to take really good care of you with the way it fits you through the chest and the arms, designed to make you look and feel your best. They are operating out of Austin, but they're Aggies, and they care about this community. That's why you can find them here at Kyle Field and all around all the time. The website is thechargeapparel.com, thechargeapparel.com. Find them on Instagram at thechargeapparel or on X, the Charge brand. We're going to play a little game of what would you do? What would OB do? TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Ob God was looking out for me yesterday. I think
he always does.
He always does, but definitely on Saturday. So the story I'm going to tell you, we'll make it quick, is I'm going to be very upfront and say my daughter made the wrong decision. Okay. Playing soccer the other day. Of course, all these issues happen at the soccer field. And I guess I wasn't there. That's why I'm saying God was looking out for me. Because if I would have been there, I'd be in jail today. And it's a very physical game, according to my wife. And I guess one of the parents on the other side yells out at the players, "That should be a foul. They keep fouling that one." And I think they're pointing at my daughter, whatever, right? And my daughter turns around and says to him, "No, your girls are fouling." She shouldn't have done that. Okay, she shouldn't have done that. And by the way, if I would have been there, she would have apologized for that. The man says to her, "Shut up, little girl." So, what would OB do if young Quinn, 9-year-old, 10-year-old Quinn, is playing a sport and a man says, "Shut up, little boy," to your child? Are you going to just be like okay with it, or do you think you might have some choice words?
I have to admit, I would probably say something back to him, but it would only be like 5 words,
Shut the front door, please.
My would probably be in there.
Yeah.
Mother might be. I might talk about his mother. Hey, this is his mother. Don't talk like that in front of my wife.
Just so you can know how I parent. I parent like this. Isla is going to apologize to her coach on Monday.
I wouldn't.
Isla's going to apologize.
Okay, I wouldn't. If somebody's taunting them, I don't have a problem with them taunting back.
My daughter does not need to talk to parents, and she knows now. She's going to apologize for her coach for doing so. But had I been there, I would have had her apologize to him directly, and then I would have stood right next to that guy and said, "But now tell me what you told her, because I'm going to be talking the entire time by your ear, and please."
And you're going to apologize.
Well, I'm not apologizing.
No, I'm talking about he's going to. He's going to.
I'm going to tell her. I'm hoping he tells me to shut up.
No, you're going to tell him to apologize to her.
Sure, absolutely. Right. You don't talk to my kid.
No.
Unless it's positive. Right? You can tell your wife, "Oh, that little girl's mean," or whatever. That's fine.
There's a lot of things we do, and guys like Jared wouldn't completely understand this yet. There's a lot of things that you let go, but when your children are involved, your protective instincts kick in, and you do things you normally wouldn't do.
Well, I'm all about being classy, honestly, and I would expect my daughter not to respond. And we talked about it, and she understands. Sometimes in competition, just like me on this show, I respond to you on Twitter, right? Sometimes our emotions get the best of us. You should detach yourself from the emotion in that moment. That being said, that man, I will be at the next game because I already know who he is. Okay. I don't know who he is, but I've got a description, and my mind works great. Yeah. In fact, I think it's in the spring, but I will be there, and I will. But I'm not going to approach the dude. I'm kidding, but don't talk about my daughter ever.
One time, and this is a little bit different. It gives you an idea how I am, and maybe I fell as a parent here terribly. But my son, when he was in the 4th or 5th grade, he had a weight problem. Mm-hmm. All right, he's pretty
jacked.
ripped. Yeah, but he had a weight problem, and one kid in his class kept giving him a hard time about it. And so one day he finally got enough of it, and he punched the kid.
Okay.
All right. Principal calls me in at Greens Prairie. By the way, she's amazing if she's still there. But we said, as she told me what was going to happen and what happened, and I said, okay, I understand. You got to do what you've got to do. You got rule. So I said, but I want you to understand, he's not getting in trouble. In fact, I'm going to take him out, and I'm going to take him to get ice cream, which is probably why I had a weight problem. But I said, I'm going to take him out for ice cream, and I'm going to pat him on the back because if somebody's giving him a hard time, I want him to defend himself. So that's why
100%.
I would tell, I'm a bad parent, I would tell Isla, I would say, hey, in the future, don't say anything back to the parents. And then I would say, yeah, I like that she's not taking crap.
Yeah, I love it. But let me handle the parent.
Handle it.
Yeah. And by the way,
I'll tell you what I would have done.
This is our philosophy.
And then I'd take her out for ice cream.
Yeah, she's getting ice cream, that's for sure. This is our philosophy as parents. Use your words, right? So tell a teacher, an adult, tell them to stop. Yeah, use your words, tell an adult. And then if things get out of hand, take care of business. And that can mean many things. You put your hands on my daughter, she's going to put you in a guillotine choke. That's what she's been taught.
Teach her the guillotine choke.
I did actually teach 2 of my kids this weekend the triangle choke. With the knee to the hamstring to the neck. It's great. It's easy. I'm going to teach you one day, OB.
Okay.
In fact, we'll do it during a break. We can record it, put it on YouTube. All right?
The triangle choke.
The triangle. It's great. All right.
I hope the Aggies put the Ole Miss Rebels in the triangle choke this weekend.
Hey, were you able to keep up with Aggie basketball at all?
I did as much as I could.
Yeah.
I was keeping up with Richard Zane's thread.
Yep.
Yeah.
So a couple things. Defensively, I think they got to get back in sync. That's going to happen.
It's an exhibition.
They fouled a little bit. They can score. I think they can score. Right?
I knew that.
Wade, from all indications, has put on some muscle, some strength. You know, he's going to be a leader as he's been. He's growing. From what I could tell, it looks like Boots didn't have his best game. He's going to be fine. Henry's developed a little back to the basket.
Yeah. To me, I would get about as much upset of that game, them not winning that game, as I would the Cowboys not winning a preseason game. It doesn't matter. It just it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I heard that. I read on the thread that Wade hit a 3-pointer that would have either given them the lead or tied the game late, but Buds had just called a timeout.
Yeah.
And so it didn't count. But it doesn't matter. You know, I did they go trying to win? Of course they did. Again, a game in October, an exhibition in October, it means so little to me that I couldn't even tell you what the score was. I know they lost by about 7. It means less to me than losing to Mercer did for a team that would beat no, it wasn't Mercer. Losing to Wofford last year for a team that would beat Alabama and Tennessee almost back to back. So that's why I don't even have a response to it.
But I am really excited about this team.
Oh, I am too.
I'm really excited about what it can mean. But it's kind of like we talked about football. To me, for basketball, what are we going to do in March?
Yeah.
Like all this is part of the lead up, and I want to win a bunch of non-conference games. I want to win the SEC. I want to go through the tournament, whatever. All the things that we want to see, but really, do you get into the tournament and do you win a few games? That's the next step.
I really, and I agree with you there, but this year I'm going to care a little bit more than usual about what they do in December because we've learned the last 2 years that the NCAA selection committee, and I know it changes who they are, but still is not going to ever apparently cut A&M a break, even if I'm going to say not even be fair with them. You know, 2 years ago, not let them into the tournament. Last year, give them a ridiculous 7 seed. So I'm going to pay a little more attention to that, and they have a good schedule to what they do in December and November because the ramifications that it may have in March.
Yeah,
I have no doubt in my mind this team's going to be involved in March Madness.
Can you see a top 4 seed for this team this year?
Yeah, I absolutely can. Look, they're going to score like they did in that exhibition game, and I'm going to tell you, I know that that's why like that game didn't mean anything to me. I know that Buzz Williams' team is going to play good defense.
They always do, and they'll hit their free throws too. I think they missed a few free throws yesterday.
I think Wade missed a free throw, which
doesn't really happen.
It really doesn't. I think.
Yeah.
I think Wade at the free throw line is a layup. In fact, it's probably better than a layup usually.
Let's get to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. I know, Jared, there's been some text messages we have avoided. Let's get to them.
Yeah, we have a very optimistic Ross from East Texas saying, "Good morning. The Aggies are going to figure things out, get energized for the last third of the season, and win out. Defense, Anais, and Max will lead us there."
And Edge. Yeah. Okay, I'm in.
Hey,
Let's make it happen.
You can have doubts about this team for obvious reasons, but there are some things pointing in the right direction. The defense will keep offenses at bay. Outside of Miami, as you pointed out very early, offenses have struggled to score. Like the Alabama game, it's not like they were scoring left and right on this team.
There's only 5 things if you get better that they can beat anybody. And I mean anybody. And that's left tackle, right tackle, left guard, right guard, and center.
Yeah.
Get that figured out, get better, and you can beat anybody.
Yeah.
And let's see if did we see any progress in that regard on last week?
Yeah. Did I see progress?
After the first quarter,
After
it
the
got a
first
little better.
quarter.
I would say like
Still need to run block better.
you got to run block better for sure, but I would say yes, it was better. It's interesting how people evaluate offensive line. I've seen people all over Bryce Foster, and some people say he had a better game. I'd have to slow it down and watch again. I think what I care about is the collective group, and I might even ask Jimbo about the constant changing of the O-line, and I asked Billy about it, and it's because it looks like he's trying to find the right combo. But
Which
that's
is
a problem.
sad 8 games in.
It's we should know.
Yeah.
We should know. Let's try to get another one in.
We got one more from Madden in Houston saying, for me, it's the offense not being able to score touchdowns second half of games. Granted, Max Wright did score, but wasn't called that. Says you can't win the 2 remaining road games without scoring touchdowns in the second half. I would agree with that.
By the way, let's say this, though. On one of those drives, they settled for a field goal. It was absolutely the right call. It was 4th and 1, but it gave you a 2-score lead, so you had to take the field goal there. That was the right call.
Yep. By the way, do you think, and we'll talk about it throughout the week, you think Jimbo's got this game like it's personal to him?
I think so, but I don't think he'd ever admit it.
So if we ask him today, is this game a little more personal?
He's going to say no. Every game, nameless, faceless opponent. I don't care if that coach did call my player a bad word, which is ridiculous that a coach would do that. I don't care that that one coach has been he's not even going to say this, but one coach is, what they call it, trolling me on Twitter and all this. I don't care. It's a nameless, faceless opponent. All games are important, but
they're just trying to get bowl eligible.
Yeah, but I got a pretty good idea that Jimbo Fisher would want to, do a break dance do they still break dance? Would do a break dance at midfield on the Ole Miss field to beat Lane Kiffin.
It better be personal. I know it's personal to our fans. I expect it to be personal to Bryce Anderson. Yeah. I expect it to be personal to that whole team. Yeah, it better be personal.
I would think in a perfect scenario, that of course the Aggies win, and I don't want it to be close, but I'd like to see Bryce Anderson with like a back-breaking pick six.
Oh, baby.
And then he would take the ball to Lane and say, here you go, B-word.
Bernie?
Bernie.
Weekend at Bernie's an underrated movie.
Yeah.
Have you watched it?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay, just making sure. It's rated exactly how it should be. All right, let's hit a break here. We're talking Caldwell Country Chevrolet. They're on Highway 21. They're in Caldwell, and they're online at caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. They have great deals that start on the website. You go there, you see the selection of vehicles that they have to kind of get a feel for the vehicles, right? And the price point. You go on the lot, and you're going to see some great cars, and you're going to have a decision to make because they're going to find you the right car. If you don't see it, you tell them what you're looking for. They're going to find it at the right price point, and then the trade-in value second to none when you go to Caldwell Country Chevrolet. I'm telling you, it's about the experience when you go there. Complimentary pickup for their service customers, and again, great deals on your trade-in. So whatever season of life you're in, if you're looking for a vehicle for your teenager that's about to start driving, or you need a new one for work, or whatever it may be, let Caldwell Country Chevrolet be the place for you. About a 15-minute drive, Brian Caldwell. Short conversation away, but you're going to see the difference when you step on the lot and you do business with the good people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. They're on Highway 21. They're in Caldwell and online at caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. Final segment of the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. We are TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. David Nuño, Olin Buchanan. And at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center, we find ourselves with Kay Nagley with Around Aggieland, which is presented by Norman G. State Bank. Norman G. State Bank, rock solid banking, the website, normangstatebank.com. Kay, what up?
Good morning, guys. Me and Obi were talking about Halloween over the break, and I'm curious if y'all have any sleeves or plans up your sleeves for tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm going out and eat hamburgers.
Or as a costume.
I don't.
What?
I don't.
Hey,
I came up with my idea too late, and ordered something, but it's not going to get here in time, so it's just not going to be. It's not going. And I'll never be able to top last year.
No, you won't. That was fantastic.
That was great.
I show that to people from time to time. I'm sure we'll do trick or treating in the neighborhood.
How about? Are you going to dress up?
No, I mean I dress up as Clark. I mean not Clark. I dress up as Bruce Wayne every year.
Yeah.
I just put my Bruce Wayne outfit on. I'm sure we'll go trick or treating in the neighborhood, and I know my friends at Brazos Valley MMA have a Halloween party for kids, so we may stop by that tomorrow as well.
How about you, Kay?
I will be dressing. Well, this isn't the full day, but me and Luke Evangelist are gonna dress as each other. So I'm gonna wear a really baggy, oversized polo that I got from a thrift store, and some other baggy clothes to make it look like him. And then he's gonna put on a blonde wig. So y'all will have to see pictures of that for our podcast.
Yeah, but doesn't he do that like all the time?
Wear a blonde wig?
Yeah,
I thought that's how I met him.
Yeah.
Sorry, did it get awkward here?
That's just what he
just got
rolls.
real quiet. Hey,
I just was an
we do have a minute left for Around Aggieland.
We do.
I'm glad we did this.
Y'all talked enough football. Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin up this week, but men's basketball, Texas A&M basketball did head over to Denton for the Compete for Classic or Cause Classic in the exhibition match against Texas Tech. Unfortunately, did lose 89-84, but Wade Taylor had a team high 25 points, and then they will play again on Sunday to officially kick off the 2023-2024 season. Volleyball unfortunately got swept over the weekend in number 12 Tennessee, and then soccer has an upcoming match coming up in the SEC tournament on Tuesday. They will play 3-seed South Carolina with hopes for an NCAA tournament bid, and then also 4 Aggie soccer players were had SEC honors. That was announced this past Sunday. And then women's golf also kicking off this morning with the East Lake Cup. So a lot going on.
Thank you, Kay. Thank you, OB. You
bet.
Next is Tom Hart. Bye. Welcome back in. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's talk a little SEC football around the world with our buddy Tom Hart there on the hotline.
David, I can't hear you.
Oh, he can't hear
They've
me.
got you muted.
That's all right. We'll
there you go.
Hello, Tom Hart.
Thought you were probably playing an awesome song. I was all fired up, and I got nothing. We're good.
It was a Van Halen song. Right now, I forgot it. It was just 5 seconds ago. It's senior moment happening to me here, Tom. There we go. Can you hear that?
I can't. I kind of figured you'd be playing Skilo this morning. I don't know why. I felt like you're in a Skilo kind of mood.
It's
perfect. It's jump. We didn't even tell the zone to play that, but I mean, David, I think you know why. That's perfect.
Oh, Tom Hart. I got to tell you, I just saw the video a few seconds ago. We're going to show our audience. Tom Hart's got some skills.
Well, they got to go to SEC Network Twitter to see it.
Oh, we can't.
Yeah, sorry, we can't show that. But
okay.
SEC Network Twitter
Never mind.
to see it.
Well, Tom, I want to give you props on the ability, because I've been there before, not dunking, but the ability to keep your suit like intact as you're running and throwing down. Because like sometimes when you walk and the shirt starts coming out, you got to do the fix thing. You had grace when it came, man. It was like you had done it before.
Here's the key, especially when you're wearing dress shoes, even if they're dress sneakers and you're on a field of any sort, like it's like walking on ice a little bit. And I actually showed my family last night at dinner, and they all just rolled their eyes. They're so embarrassed. And they're like, why weren't you really running? Like, you were just kind of shuffling. I said, because the worst thing that could happen is you fall right on your butt.
Yep.
Like, you slip in your dress shoes and you go down. That's the end. Over. So just make it to your point and then leave the ground. Chris Beard offered me a walk-on spot last night. I said, no, I'm a straight scholarship player. Like, if you want me to be on this Ole Miss basketball team, find me some NIL and a Scally, son. That's how I roll.
Hey, you could throw it down. That was apparent. You can absolutely throw it down. Let's talk a little A&M, because I know you didn't watch the game because you were busy at another game, but I'm sure you've caught up. I tell people, like, aesthetically when we're watching the game, it didn't feel great. But if you look at the stats, they did exactly what they're supposed to do, Tom. So what was your assessment of what, the highlights you saw and some of the stats?
Yeah, I was able to watch a good chunk of it flipping around before we left the hotel. But what did I tell you last week? I said that it matched up really well on the defensive side for A&M, because South Carolina's offensive line is just a revolving door, right? And that played out. 10 tackles for loss. What was it, 4 sacks, I think? 3 or 4 sacks. The pressures that they got on Rattler, I don't know. Did he have 3 intentional grounding penalties?
He did.
I've never seen that before. So he was obviously rattled, no pun intended, and they were in his face the entire time. So that played right into A&M's strength. What I didn't notice, I kind of did the same thing you did. Like, I went back and looked at the stats. What I wasn't aware of in the moment was that A&M had such a hard time protecting Max Johnson. I didn't realize that he had been sacked 3 times, and they had 7 tackles behind the line of scrimmage. And I think it's a real concern going forward facing this Ole Miss defense this weekend. Obviously, I was just in Oxford. That's a team that's playing really well right now on both sides of the ball. And for the first time, well, really, Kiffin told us the first time he can ever remember, going back a week when they were playing Auburn, he took his foot off the gas. They didn't want to turn the ball over late in the game, even though it turned into a 1-possession game. And he said, for the first time, I said to myself, forget about the offense. Let's let the defense go and win this game. And that's not how he usually thinks as an offensive-minded head coach. So that should show you kind of where Ole Miss is right now in terms of their confidence on both sides of the ball. But yes, so in the end, we knew South Carolina was going to give up pressures and allow that incredible A&M defensive line to get in the backfield. What I didn't expect is for the same story to play out on the other side of the ball, and that's something that's got to be, fixed, addressed, paid good attention to.
Tom, I'll throw in as well is that yes, they got to him 3 times, Max Johnson, but that was on the second drive of the game. All 3 sacks happened on that series.
Oh, okay.
He was not.
That's
sacked.
why I missed it.
Yeah. So he wasn't sacked after that. Now there was pressure, and obviously they didn't run the ball at an extreme level, at an elite level, I should say, but I feel like as the game went on, they started to make their adjustments. I may have lost you. Are you there, Tom?
No, I'm here. You got me?
Yeah, there you are. So just they did make some adjustments throughout the game offensively. They were changing a little bit of the personnel. So that part, at least, I thought was good.
Can you answer this question for me, just kind of going over the box score? Why did A&M have to settle for field goals so many times second half, fourth quarter?
Because they struggle scoring in the second half. 4 straight games they haven't scored a touchdown. I will say this. Max Wright scored a touchdown. I'm sure you saw that highlight. It was a touchdown. So there's at least one that should have been given to A&M. And how does that look then? You've got a few more points on the board. It's a touchdown. At that point, it really extends the game. It's not really a game at that point. But at the end of the day, they haven't been good in the second half scoring. And they've got to make adjustments mid-third quarter to whatever the defense is doing to them. And then this week against Ole Miss, who not only is really good, it's personal for both programs. It's personal for Lane Kiffin, and it's personal for Texas A&M.
Yeah, that's going to be a really interesting matchup. Ole Miss is at a place right now, having been around them, where they could get better quarterback play. Jackson Dart has not been, to borrow a word that you just used about the A&M running game, has not been elite. He's been more than serviceable, but they had their way Saturday night with Vanderbilt, which no big surprise there, I know. And Lane was mad. Like, he was like, at halftime, he was mad about their lack of execution, and they hadn't allowed a single point. I don't remember what the score was at the half, but they were blowing them out. And, Cole was interviewing him at halftime, and he gave what I described as a very Saban-esque answer, which was, we're not playing well enough. Like, he's gotten to the point now with that program where the bar is high and the expectations are high. And I feel like there's also some pressure that is self-imposed to reach new heights for Ole Miss, because they've had, a couple of really good seasons recently. Last year they, did not play well down the home stretch, but they can put together some wins. It's about getting over the hump, and they're in position where, depending on what happens at LSU Alabama Saturday night, there could be a 2 or 3 way tie in the West. And they're disappointed they didn't perform well at Alabama, but they just got outplayed by a really good Alabama defense that night. So a couple things to look for from an A&M perspective with Ole Miss. They're running the ball really well. And one of the reasons they're running the ball well is Quinshon Judkins, who led the league in rushing last year, had the best year for an SEC freshman running back since Emmitt Smith in 1987 in terms of total yardage, is now sharing the load. They're alternating running backs, one series on, one series off. Ulysses Bentley is really good as well. I don't think he's as good as Judkins, but he's a good change of pace back. Most importantly, there is now Judkins is fresh, and he's fresh in the fourth quarter, and that offensive line is good enough to make room. Their tight end, Caden Prieskorn, is really good, and their wide receivers are elite. They've got elite speed. They've got great ball skills. It is very much still a Lane Kiffin offense in terms of having playmakers at just about every position. The one thing that they are maybe a notch behind in is quarterback efficiency, but they are one of the most explosive offenses in college football, and A&M's defense has done a great job limiting explosive plays. So those 20-yard pass plays, 30-yard pass plays, those are going to be the ones that decide this game Saturday night, I think. Tom,
you mentioned how Ole Miss is still theoretically, in it in the West, but there's a scenario if A&M takes care of business on the road this weekend that depending on what happens with Alabama and LSU, there could be 3 teams right there in second place in the West, opening the door to some mayhem potentially.
I love mayhem. Like, I love college football chaos. I'm here for all of it, because no matter what we plan or think we know what's going to happen, somebody's going to lose who shouldn't, both on a national scale and in these conference races. Just look at Kansas and Oklahoma. Yep. You play early start in Lawrence, Kansas against a team that historically, they hadn't beaten a top 25 team in forever, since maybe that Orange Bowl team in 2007. And they land a knockout blow to Oklahoma, and probably in the process knocked the Big 12 out of the college football playoff.
Let's talk a little Tennessee and Kentucky. Kentucky had their chances. They certainly had a very good first half, but then it was Tennessee who outlasted them. Is Tennessee, in your opinion, the second best team there in the East?
I'm not ready to say that just yet. We'll know more Saturday, because I think Missouri could be that team. Missouri's gotten elite quarterback play from Brady Cook, and it's obvious now that he was really hurt last year. What was a very average, a subpar season for him. Luther Burden might be the best wide receiver in the SEC. I mean, I don't think he's Marvin Harrison-like in terms of the country, but he's up there. And they've got the SEC's statistically the best running back in Cody Schrader. So they got a chance to go into Georgia and once again provide some chaos. I thought Georgia played out of this world after Florida got out front 7-0. And it's evident when you watch Kirby and his team that they have that assassin's mentality. I mean, they got behind early. They started putting things together. They got a block punt. They went for the kill early in that game, and they're good enough to do it. And I never thought I would say this because I had, as a Heisman voter, I had Brock Bowers on my short list, at the midway point of the season before he got hurt, because I think he and like Marvin Harrison are two of the most valuable players to their teams, right? Georgia looked like a better offense without him. Able to spread the ball around. Everybody got to eat. Seemed like everybody was a little bit more into it. He is like a great player in basketball who dominates the ball, and that's great. And you need to have a go-to guy, but it also keeps the ball out of everybody else's hands and sometimes gets stuck. And as much as I love Brock Bowers, and I think we're going to be watching him a long time on Sundays, Georgia looked like a more complete offense against Florida on Saturday afternoon because they spread it around.
Tom, is Auburn getting better? Or it's just Mississippi State just isn't good, or is it both?
Yeah, I don't think Auburn's getting much better. Mississippi State's got a long way to go. And that transition from air raid to pro style impacted Will Rogers is hurt right now anyway, but impacted Will at quarterback more than I thought it would. I guess I didn't have a full appreciation for that. We knew it would be a challenge in what they could do offensively. Defensively, they still do a lot of good things. They held that Arkansas offense to 3 points a couple of weeks ago. But they're just – both of those programs are so far behind the others in roster makeup. And it's just it's impossible to win if you don't have the horses in this league. So credit Auburn for getting a win. I mean, they all count, and that's great. And they found a little bit more consistency at the quarterback position, but they're still a long way off.
Tom, this Michigan situation, it keeps getting more weird, and they're rescinding their offer, their extension, the Harbaugh, all these things are happening. Just what's your read on what's happening there at Michigan?
Well, number one, I don't know if we can trust any of the information coming from anybody. I was talking to somebody last night who said that Harbaugh's offer has been sitting on his desk for months, and he just hasn't signed it. So it's more him than the program. But then you never know. You never know who to trust when it comes to this stuff. And then the big drama. I mean, this sounds like message board drama, but it's been accused by John Bacon, who's a writer up there who's covered that program inside and out for decades, that the leak coming from the NCAA is a Michigan booster who has it in for Harbaugh and is trying to sabotage Harbaugh. All of that being said, the idea that they went to such lengths, if we take everything at face value, which might be a stretch, to send people to games, to steal signs, then to collaborate, I don't know how you can put them in the college football playoff. I mean, the resume is what it is right now. The NCAA and college football better hope that Ohio State beats them and keeps them out, because it is just a horrible precedent to set that you can be a blatant rule breaker and still play for the sport's biggest prize. And they're a really good team. Don't get me wrong. I on the field, even though they haven't played anybody of note just yet, they look like a team that could beat anybody. But I'm at a loss for how people in the sport are just kind of waving it off and excusing it. The bottom line is, when the Big Ten's got to do something, because there's 13 other teams in that league who have been victims of what Michigan has perpetrated over the last couple of years, and this year included, right? It's not like this was discovered in the offseason and then everything was blown out and we start fresh. No, this is the middle of the season, and it puts everybody in a really tricky spot. Coaches, we accept in college football that there is a gray area in a lot of different spaces, not the least of which is recruiting, right? But there is honor among thieves, so to speak. And if you get to a point where you tick off the rest of your entire league, you have gone to an extreme that needs to be dealt with. And I think you got to find a way to deal with them before we get to the end of the season and cut this thing off.
Would you be surprised if Harbaugh's back next year at Michigan?
I'd be surprised. Yeah. I mean, between the COVID recruiting, this thing, the infighting there that's obvious within Ann Arbor, and as I mentioned, this booster who's trying to take him down. I don't know how he survives it, and I don't know that he wants to stick around. I mean, he's already had one foot at the door to numerous NFL teams over the years. It's probably time for both parties for him to move out the door.
What about Lincoln Riley? You think he'll be back at USC next year?
Well, who's going to be his defensive coordinator?
Yeah.
What's amazing about the sport of college football that you don't really see in other big time sports, whether that be the NBA or hockey or even college basketball, is we as fans and outsiders can see the obvious warts within an organization and say, you got to fix that or it's going to be a problem. And the stubbornness of many of the people at the top, and I think it starts with the head coaches who obviously are type A and driven and have really hard jobs, and they refuse to make those changes. Whether it's USC's defense or Iowa's offense, like how do you or Dabo's recruiting philosophy when it comes to the transfer portal, these are things that are getting in the way. Why is it so hard to see inside the forest when everybody outside can point to it and say, hey, man, you need to make changes? And I think it's, I think Lincoln Riley is great for the college game. And I think having USC be good is good for college football. But it's amazing that their defense could be that poor, and we saw it coming, and they're doing themselves no favors and trying to address it and get it fixed.
A non-football question. Did you check out the highlights or maybe the fight itself between Ngannou and Tyson Fury?
No, I didn't realize that, that it was in Saudi Arabia, and because of that, it was so early in the day. Usually we finish our game and we can go catch a piece of the fight. I didn't see it, but I saw the aftermath. I saw the black eyes.
Yeah, Ngannou brought it, man. I think he was raw. It was cool atmosphere for sure.
Did you think the decision was the correct decision?
No. I think Ngannou won the fight. I think it's boxing. It's corrupt. And there was no way they were going to allow a guy from the MMA world to beat the best heavyweight there is out there. And he clearly won the fight, knocked him down, won more rounds, in my opinion. He struggled getting anything going against Ngannou. I think it was because it was an unorthodox fight, to be honest with you, because he doesn't fight like a typical boxer. But the power was certainly there.
Dude, by the way, totally off topic, but 2 weeks ago, I met Chuck Liddell. He was in Oxford. A long story, but you can just tell when a guy has heavy hands, right? Like when you meet them, you can see the power. And I was talking with him. I was like, hey, because we're hanging out at a bar at one point, and then hanging out with him before the game. And I said, how often does a guy have a few too many, Patrons and come up to you in a bar and go, bro, I could take you down? And he goes, every night somebody gets this bravado. And he goes, and he's not going to fight anybody, right? He goes, all I do is I put my arm around him. I go, bro, you probably could. You should take up MMA. You should find a trainer, man. You could be a bad dude just like me. And then he talks his way out of anything. But by the way, the idiots in our society that would step up to Chuck Liddell and try to take him down in a bar fight, that's a whole nother story.
Is he a college football fan?
He is. He's a huge college football fan. Yeah, his current girlfriend was a gymnast at Auburn. He has a daughter that goes to Ole Miss. And by the way, kind of off topic, but this guy, Liddell, has been in the biggest scenes in sports, right? Yeah. I mean, he's the guy who kind of kicked off MMA and all the fights that he's been parts of. He goes to SEC football games and he's blown away. There's this appreciation for the scene and the crowd and the energy. And I hope we who cover it regularly don't ever lose sight of how special it is, because it's different in our part of the country than other places. There are places that get hype and that get loud, and I think Oregon had a great atmosphere a few weeks ago, but that's like one game a year. And whether it's at A&M or Knoxville, Tuscaloosa, LSU, whatever. We see it every weekend, and you're going to see it in Tuscaloosa this weekend, obviously.
Tom, now you gave me an idea. I got to get Chuck Liddell on the show. I got to get my interns to find a way to contact him. We're going to work on that.
Okay, I can help out.
Okay.
That's a great idea.
Oh, thank you, buddy. Yeah, my man. Tom, I appreciate you, brother.
All right, you have fun.
You too, man. See ya. Tom Hart, SEC Network. That's my guy right there. He's going to hook us up with Chuck Liddell, maybe. That'd be fun. Let's hit a break. I think Billy will be either on the phone or in studio in the next segment. Right now, we're talking about career opportunities at the Association of Former Students. Looking for a reason to come back to Aggieland, or if you're already in Aggieland and just need a better gig, you should look at the Association of Former Students. They're seeking to hire professionals to join their team. There's positions open all over the place: communications, fundraising, former student programs, campus programs, and much, much more. They're the nation's premier alumni association and the oldest organization serving the Texas A&M network, in support of that network, by the way. They play a huge part in every Aggie story from howdy to here. So don't miss an opportunity to help out the association with Howdy Socials, Aggie Ring Day, to class reunions, Aggie Muster, and everything in between. Join a team that exemplifies the Aggie core values of excellence, integrity, leadership, loyalty, respect, and selfless service, all in support of that worldwide Aggie network. If you're interested in joining a team or sharing with someone who would be a great fit, please visit tx.ag/associationjobs to apply and get more information on each position. We are back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Billy Liucci in studio. Hello, William.
David Nuño.
What's up, man?
I'm good.
I like that. I like that. It's got a little Dr. Dre / hip 2020
but a G thing.
Yeah, but it's like more trendy.
Still MF and DRE.
Wow, you remember the lyrics, buddy. So
I do like this, by the way.
I do too.
It's Vince. That's the brand.
That's the name of the brand.
I've been waiting for a day where I could wear this.
Well, it's a good look. Let's get into some of the takeaways from the game. What are some initial thoughts that hit your head
this morning? No time for anything.
Oh, we can joke.
No, I'm kidding. What? Talk to me about the game here.
Just some takeaways. What takeaways did you have? Initial thoughts on what we saw?
You went broad.
Well, you want me to go
Very
specific?
broad.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay, let's go specific.
My takeaways were what we talked about yesterday on the wildly popular podcast, The Luchador.
It actually is popular.
It is. You've done a great job of making that popular.
Thank you.
We've committed to it. You come in on Sunday. I can roll in on Sunday when everybody just goes out of town. Like anybody that's in town, they leave. Maybe I'll go have a breakfast. Then it's, podcast with you, then lunch. Nuño's over here, 4 kids, wife, Sunday, comes in, knocks out a couple of NILs. We were busy yesterday.
We were busy.
How many do we have? How many interviews do we have? 3?
Might have been 4.
4, yeah. 4 interviews and the podcast. So that was
By the way, go check out that interview with Connor. Really good stuff.
Yeah, he's good. Connor's spirits are, I think they're much better than I didn't talk to him right after the injury. I texted with him and, I just felt terrible for him. Anytime that happens, same way I was with Haynes King, anytime it happens to a quarterback, even Starkle back in the day, you go your whole off season, especially when it happens so early in the year. Connor played a half of football in the SEC this year. And so anyway, it's a good interview, some good perspective for a young guy, and he's going to sit back now. And that was his first game back on the sidelines, and hopefully he's ready to help out any way he can, and looking forward to getting back. So long road though. Look, I think he told me he's going to be back, able to be on his, walk freely in like 3 weeks.
Okay.
It's been a minute. That game, what I think of it, look, I think A&M went out and handled business. And it was a positive Saturday. I don't think, for all the negativity of the last 2 weeks, and rightfully so, when you have chances to win important SEC games and you don't. They needed to come back and win. They all weigh the same in the record, but with the ones that are bigger than the others and the opportunities. Which, by the way, they've got one coming up next week again. That's 3 out of 4 weeks, and right now you're 0-2. This one was not one of those, but it was a must-win game. And I think almost all these SEC home games need to be considered must-wins, because not that A&M should have the losing streak on the road that they have, but road wins in this league are difficult.
Yeah, they are.
That's why Tennessee going and beating Kentucky was really significant this weekend. Road wins in this league are hard. LSU couldn't go into Oxford and come out with a win. It's haunting them right now. They're tough to get. You got to get more than none in your last 10, goes without saying. But when you're at home and you're a home favorite, especially, those every year, I don't care the year, I don't care. Those are must-win games. You're a 1-point favorite at home. It's a must-win game because it's so hard to get them away from home.
Yeah.
You're a better team. You're favored by 3 on the road. That's upset alert city. So when you're a favorite at home, and A&M was a 2-score favorite, it was a bad first quarter. It was a a very concerning first quarter because you're going, look, if there's one thing Rattler and South Carolina could do, it's score. I was never that worried about it because I didn't think they could score a lot with that offensive line. But after that first quarter, you're going, hey, you only have 3 quarters of football left here. And you got 3 quarters of ball left to play, and you're begging for a 4-quarter game that could turn on a play. One mistake by one of your guys. a special team or a ball security issue, a drop pass. You're asking for it, and your season. I know some people think the season's over, but it's. Trust me, if they would have lost Saturday, that ride to the bottom would have gotten a lot more rocky. So you had to win that game. There is hopes of continuing to win the rest of the season. They're not a 17-point underdog this weekend. It's going to probably be somewhere between 4 and 5. It'll be less than a touchdown. I think they've got a very legitimate chance to win. I think they should be an underdog. I think if you made me bet with no spread, I'd say, well, take the Aggie out of it. I'm going to go with the home team that's 7-1.
Mm-hmm.
But we know what we've seen from both teams on the field. It's a winnable game that can change everything. But you had to get there first. And would I have liked to seen them play 4 dominant quarters? Sure. Would that have made me feel differently about their chances in Oxford? Probably not. I wanted that. We didn't get that. But I thought it was a solid football game. It was a solid final 3 quarters. It was an outstanding second quarter, terrific second quarter. And they handled up. Look, they beat what's South Carolina's schedule and results? Can somebody put it up there? I mean, they beat them worse than Georgia did.
Yes, they did.
I'm not saying they're Georgia, but I mean, I don't know if you were expecting A&M as a 2-touchdown favorite to go win by 4 or 5 TDs. It would have been nice.
I have their schedule now.
Go ahead.
All right, so they open up with Furman. Excuse me.
Yeah,
They open up with
give me the ones that matter.
UNC. They lose 31-17.
Yeah,
okay?
not the same.
Georgia 24-14. They lose. They beat Mississippi State 37-30. They lose to Tennessee 41-20. And they lose to Florida 41-39.
Yeah, so I mean.
Oh, and Missouri, by the way, 34-12.
34-12.
Yep.
Missouri's pretty good, man.
Yeah, Missouri is good.
Drinkwitz is the coach of the year right now.
But some of the teams that unfortunately A&M is in the same record category wise, Florida, that was a close game. 41-39.
And you expect now. Florida's got a lot more history and success than Texas A&M football does.
But I'm saying this season.
I'm saying where those programs are at right now, like year 2 under Napier, year 6 under Jimbo. Yes, I get the expectation is that A&M will be better than some of those teams we mentioned, particularly, Florida and Missouri right now. But they're all kind of in that boat together. Missouri's having the best year of those. But you sit there and watch that game Saturday, and A&M did what they were expected to do. They did what they needed to do. It's a 4-quarter game. I saw all the tweets that were being fired off early in the game, including from a couple people we know well. It's just embarrassing to just fly off the handle that much and feel the need to go to that phone and write it. Just wait, see how the game progresses. Trust me, you'll have your chances at the end of the game to try to burn it all down via Twitter.
Yeah.
There'll be games where you have your chance. You had it the last 2 weeks, if you wanted to go that route. But just at least wait to see how a game plays out. I mean, what was the score after the first quarter?
7-0.
No, so it was 30 to 10.
Oh,
31 to 30,
I see what you're saying.
It was 30 to 10, right?
30 to 10 after, yeah.
30 to 10 after the first quarter. That's kind of how the game really went. They got off to a shaky start. Real protection issues early.
Which they kind of cleaned up, not completely.
Enough.
Yeah.
Enough. I thought Dewberry coming in was significant, and I thought, it was interesting to see Crownover and Basantis really essentially share the reps there. I think you're really missing Fathery now.
Yeah.
Because just to have, and Basantis and maybe even Crownover, we're going to push him hard in camp. The way camp went.
But it's another
And
body.
Fathery didn't have the best sophomore year, and he had this freshman year that we were going, oh, wow, he's going to be special. And it wasn't the same. In year 1 under Adazio, maybe there was a period of adjustment. But, man, he would be playing right now and be a very relied upon offensive lineman. And I'm curious. Maybe somebody asked that this week in there. I'm curious about, where's he at? Is he available to play? But they did adjust a little bit. They settled down, but the team really settled down. Defense got after Rattler. I know they only had, they only had 4 sacks because they just get after the quarterback.
6 and 7 a lot.
But they basically had 7 or 8. How many times did the guy get called for intentional grounding.
That counts towards the sacks.
So they only got to him one time in that game. Took him down. That surprised me. I would not have thought.
But they were throwing him real fast.
Yeah, but I would have thought. To me, I remember Diggs getting to him, and that was the only one.
Yeah, that's the only one.
See, I thought they took him down more than that. There must have been a couple near the line, but 4 sacks is normally a good number.
Yep.
We've just seen A&M getting 7 or 8 in games. It seems like 6 or 7. Last year, 4 sacks would have been unheard of for this defense. Now they rank near the top of the country in a lot of areas. And I mentioned that first quarter thing, didn't I? People threw DJ Durkin under the bus. I mean, and oftentimes in a pretty shameful way after the Miami game. And the reality was to call him out, but like to say, hey, Durkin's got to figure it out defensively. That performance wasn't it. In year 2, with the players they have, to get torched by Miami and Van Pelt the way they did and give up, almost 40 points on defense. No way. That's not with those players. That's unacceptable. I said at the time I thought it had to do with the new coordinator and Miami hitting them with a lot. It might have been. Did you hear that?
That was a lot left.
It might have been. It might have had something to do with, them saying, "Hey, we don't think Van Pelt can make these throws. Let's stop the run and dare him." And they gambled and lost. Whatever it was, the takeaway was DJ Durkin. It's got to be better than this. That's not what you were brought in for. And they had an up and down first year, and then after that, they've been great. That's the way you. To me, that's the way you reference something and you acknowledge something that's not good enough. And that was the first quarter, Nuño, of the season, essentially. That's like burning everything down in the first quarter of a football game when you're down 7-0. Look, A&M hasn't fallen behind early in very many games this year, right? I mean, there's one thing they've done is they've tended to score first. They've played with the lead.
They've had the lead in every game.
Every SEC game.
Well, every game this season entering the half except Miami.
Yeah.
And they should have had the lead.
Yeah, they gave it up in the final minute.
Mm-hmm.
That still haunts this team, I think, is that final. If you just get that one, if you get that one first down, one more to end that half, it's at least a 10, if not a 14-point swing. And then if you can get that 1 yard, whether it be on that third down play or that false start, that game might have been 31-13. But anyway, what Durkin and that defense have done is remarkable, and I want to talk about it for a minute coming out because I don't think we talked about it enough yesterday.
Okay.
207 yards, another just harassing Rattler. They had, one pretty shaky drive there in the third quarter where they missed some tackles to end the third, but again, they're playing at an elite level, and I want to take a dive into some of the numbers they're putting up defensively.
Let's do that. Right now we're talking Milliken Reserve. If you're looking for a home, that is a great place to begin because neighborhoods at Milliken Reserve are nothing like your typical subdivisions out there. They're based entirely in the Brazos Valley landscape and heritage, closely linked to the land with deep Texas roots, and there's no place like Milliken Reserve. Check out the creek, homes on 10-plus acre wooded estates. You've got the Hollow, which is in a private gated community, and you've got the Meadows. Homes at the Meadows are responsive to their natural surroundings. You can learn more about these places at millikenreserve.com. It is rooted in Texas soil. If it sounds like a place for you, go check out millikenreserve.com. And even if you don't need a house right now, you're just looking to enjoy nature, that is the place to go because they're dedicated to the conservation of a healthy community with 2,600 acres of open space, 30 miles of trails and homes out there, and they've got farms. It's a great place for families to cherish generation after generation. You can go hiking there, biking, canoeing, kayaking. You've got equestrian trails, evening yoga, the summer camps, the music festivals, the farmer market tours, and the farm tours. Again, that website is millikenreserve.com, millikenreserve.com. Hey, everybody. We're back. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studios. So we did a deep dive on Luchador on the offensive side of things, but Billy wants to point out some defensive things that maybe we just take for granted at times, how pretty good this defense has been, beyond pretty good, how dominant in certain categories.
I think that's kind of the point I was making is they're beyond pretty good. They're one of the best defenses in college football this year. And I think that's with some questions in the secondary, and they've still managed. And we saw it against Bama, and you saw Tennessee try it. They were inconsistent in hitting those passes, but teams are just going to say, Durkin has basically said since that Miami game, I'm not going to. It's like he was essentially said, I'm not going to ever let a quarterback get comfortable against us again, because it's the same things that I was saying after that first game is, you can't not be super aggressive, let a QB get comfortable, and then kind of have some holes in the secondary, because with all that time, they're not going to hold up anyway. So it was this weird combination. And man, I'll be damned if he didn't get a lot more aggressive. And I want to talk about aggression here in a minute too, as it pertains to offense and game management. But he got aggressive, very aggressive, and said, I've got great dudes up front. I can stop the run, and I've got some linebackers that'll get after it. And I've got some DBs that'll get after it. Guys like Bryce Anderson. You can bring Damani if you need to. Bryce is turned into an incredible weapon. Look at his numbers there. 2.5 tackles for loss, couple sacks, and I thought Bryce. We'll go back to Bryce and edge, too. Mark these down. Aggression, Bryce and edge. Okay. Aggies right now rank 7th in the country in total defense. They're 13th against the run. Now, they're 25th in scoring defense, which I'd have to dig into. I haven't taken the time to do that today because stats change. Typically, scoring defense is just points per game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they've adjusted this, if this particular ranking has adjusted to where they don't count non-offensive points. I mean, if you do that, A&M scoring defense is probably going to move way up.
It says here, I'm looking at some stats. It says A&M has given up 13 offensive touchdowns, opponent touchdowns 17. So it says offensive touchdowns is 13.
Okay. If they count just offensive touchdowns, if not, that thing's going up because there's 28 points that they didn't really give up. Third down defense, which we know how important that is. They're 7th nationally. And sacks and TFLs, they lead the country. They're number one, a team that had 18 sacks last year. They lead the nation in sacks and tackles for loss. This is the most disruptive defense in the country right now through 8 games, 2/3 of the way through the season. And they're, by those metrics, let's just call it what it is. They're a top 10 defense in the country. They rank first in the SEC. Statistically, if they're not the best, we said it yesterday. You just watch football. It's one of the 3 best in the SEC. There's A&M, there's Alabama, there's Georgia. It's the names you want to be mentioned with. They are maximizing what they've got out there on the field. That is recruiting turning into production on the field. We haven't seen that in as much as we need to on offense yet. And realistically, a big part of that is you take away any team starting quarterback. That's no knock on Max. That's just the reality. Go across, take it away from A&M, go across the country and take out any team starting quarterback, and see what happens with their offense. Now, does that mean that's the only issue? Far, far from it. And we know it really starts with the offensive line. You can also go into their method of attack. Are they putting enough pressure on opposing defenses, things like that. But I did like what I saw offensively on Saturday, which was they're just more aggressive in their approach. I know that had to do with opponent, but I also think that had to do with there was a conscious shift over there where they said, we got to call a more aggressive game this week.
If we saw it on defense, then become a more aggressive defense. It's the same head coach. There's no reason to believe that the offense won't adjust as these games go on. You
it's
disagree?
still different personalities of the coordinators, and I think defensively they didn't have an option. I think defensively, thank you. There you go. Coffee. They tried to cut off of me. I like that. They saw it coming, but we can have it on there. I think defensively, after Miami, they didn't have an option. I think offensively, it wasn't so much like that they were in full-blown attack mode. Like they're in a weird place offensively too now. It reminds me a little bit of where they were defensively, because it's like, yeah, if you want to commit to protecting Max and take shots down the field, you don't have time to do that. He's got to get rid of it quickly, and you've got to get him to do that, but you also have to get the protection, still, because in the first drive of the game, a guy came through the center unblocked. Like, you can't, there's no successful play for that ever in the history of the world, that a guy can come unblocked straight over the center shoulder. There's nothing that any quarterback, any play caller, anything can do to solve that. But I do think, quicker passing game, and, it's maybe harder play action where guys are forced to bite on it, maybe more motion pre-snap and get guys confused and create more matchup stuff. But I liked what I saw in terms of the fourth downs. Look, it's lower risk against South Carolina, but it's a mentality. And it's it's 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, we're going to get it. And they got 4 fourth downs. What was it? Were 3 of them sneaks and 1 was a run by Amari?
Yep.
They got a 3rd and 1 down on the goal line where Amari punched it in. They went for the jugular right there before halftime and got it. Now, I said yesterday, I'll say it again. That's different than what they did the last 2 weeks in terms of it was a different situation. Like, I understood that one. You were going to get good field position. You were going to get good field position there. And even if you went 3 and out real quick and had to punt it back to them, they were going to be inside their 10-yard line with under a minute left. So, like, there was no real risk on the other side of it. Completely different for people that just go, wow, look at that. I think you always go for the points in that situation. I think in the other ones, some teams do, some teams don't. I think with the way the offense is playing, and I wish it was better, and I wish it was more explosive, but with the way they're playing, I think not going for points at the end against those teams was the way to go.
All right, let's hit a break here. We'll come back with some text messages at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, final segment of the 9 o'clock hour here on TexAgs Radio. We do have the 10 o'clock hour still ahead, so keep it on here. We're going to have Buzz Williams joining us here shortly. His first hit of the year, so looking forward to catching up with Buzz after their 89-84 loss there to Texas Tech in the exhibition. It's all right, though. Trying to get those kinks worked out. It all starts here real soon, so we'll have Buzz on the program. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Jared Schultz there. Jared, you got a stat for us?
I just had a text from Wixenag. He just says, glad we got the win, but still disappointed on both sides of the ball. If South Carolina receivers could catch it all, then we would be in trouble. But
yeah, but you know how many times we've said that? I can think of 3 or 4 games where that has been a problem. I think there might have been a drop or two in the Alabama game, definitely in the Tennessee game, definitely in the South Carolina game. Sometimes that's because of the defense. They're thinking about what the defense has been doing all game long. You're right. Look, they could have completed a couple passes. My complaints don't start with the defense. It started at that Miami game, no doubt about that, but my complaints do not start there. My complaint still will be about blocking. And I think that unlocks everything. It unlocks the offense. Look, we're always going to have something to complain about. But if you block, you score. You move the ball. You run. It's all about the blocking. For me, it's that simple. If I could dumb it all down and just fix one thing, that's what I'm fixing. All right, let's hit a break. When we come back, as I mentioned, Buzz Williams will join us. We'll get to him, plus more thoughts from Billy here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Hey, everybody. Randomly paying attention to my scripts. It's TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Billy is in the office. We'll get to him here to join us here in a moment. But let's talk a little Aggie basketball. They started off their exhibition season just yesterday in a loss to Texas Tech, but I'm sure they learned a lot about the team. Let's go straight to the hotline. And we're talking to Buzz Williams here on TexAgs Radio. Buzz, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Hello, Buzz? I don't hear Buzz, guys. I'm going to put him back on hold and see if they can check to make sure that he's there. Double check there, folks, at Brian Broadcasting, if you can make sure everything's all good with Buzz there. Let me know when it's good to go. By the way, if you want to chime in on the show at some point, you can do that by 979-693-1150. That is the hotline number. That's how you can get in touch with the show. So you can either call the show or you can also text the show on that number as well. Let's see if we can go to the hotline and check in on Buzz Williams. Buzz, you there, sir? Still not hearing him, guys, so I'm going to let you work on that over there.
Hello?
Hey, Buzz, there you are. How are you, sir? And we lost him. Not our best segment ever. I think they're having some issues there at Brian Broadcasting, trying to get Buzz on the air, so hopefully we'll get that.
Hello?
There he is. Hey, Buzz. Good morning, sir.
I can't hear.
Yeah. It's just...
Hello?
Buzz. Coach.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
This is embarrassing. Not for you, Buzz, for us. Buzz, are you there?
Way to go, Nuño.
It's not me. I'm not blaming anybody, but it's not me.
Well, it's not Buzz, and it's not you, it's not me, so you don't blame people, Nuño. You take ownership.
Okay.
Haven't you learned anything?
You're the owner of the company.
Buzz Williams? Well, I guess we'll figure out who to blame it on. All I did was come in here with my Egg McMuffin and my coffee.
Oh, man. I'm sure Brad Marquardt's going to send me a text in a minute. What the heck, guys? Anyway.
This is a perfect way for me to have been 30 seconds late and Buzz not know about it, so that worked out.
Well, I said it earlier in the show, so excited about basketball season because of the group that they're bringing back, the direction this program seems to keep going, and defense on point. You got Wade, who had a stellar season last year, taking another big step. Boots obviously coming back huge. The front court, Henry looking good yesterday with his back to the basket. A lot of reasons to be optimistic about this team this year.
Oh, no question about it. I mean, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think it's been not that those other seasons didn't matter and they weren't trying to win conference and national championships and make March runs, but I feel like the last couple of years has been building towards this.
Yep.
You know, I think about guys like, you know, at the very beginning, Nebo and then Q and some, you know, but really since that emergence of you know, Q into this kind of superstardom down the stretch a couple of years ago, and how that team was playing and how they finished the season all the way to the NIT final, and then last year what they did in league play and in the SEC tournament again. I think it's just been building to this season, and I have just a great feeling about this basketball team and what they're capable of, and I think starting early in the year. I love the way they've tested themselves already. It's not just Tech, you know, and I want to talk to Buzz about that. It's how they've tested themselves in this preseason, and I think it's important when you look at this early season schedule because they're really challenging themselves more so than I think any. There might have been 1 year back in the day where A&M's non-conference schedule was like, whoa, and that team ended up dominating that non-conference. I think they went 500 in the SEC, and then or was it might have even been the Big 12. No, it was SEC. They were like 500 in the SEC, and then they went on to, you know, go to the Sweet 16.
Let's see if we can try it again and see if we can be a professional radio show. Buzz Williams on the hotline. Buzz, are you there, sir?
Yes, sir.
Hey.
Oh, wow.
Good to hear you, sir. How you doing?
Doing good. How you doing?
Doing great, sir. So let's talk a little bit about
Coach. Blame Nuño.
No, please don't. Not this time.
Liucci, anything that has TexAgs in it, I'm blaming no one but you.
See, that's what we said. He pointed out you do own the company, right? Dang it, accountability.
Yeah, you are the head coach, right? You're the head coach.
Could you
so
imagine? Could you imagine if you went into a post-game presser and just started blaming assistants? Well, it wasn't me, guys.
There's been a lot of meltdowns this fall with a lot of coaches blaming a lot of people, but I think you always have to blame TexAgs, the owner, the head coach.
That's so true. Buzz, take us through. I was just talking about this team, and it just felt to me like it's just been the excitement for me, and I think a lot of people, I wonder if it's been in that building too. It just feels like this has been building up, and this is just a team that is capable, and I know they've got to prove it, and there's so much work to do, but it's capable of so much. But the way you guys have tested yourselves in this preseason, going up there playing Tech, and then, no one talks about it, but these super secret, top secret exhibitions, and I know y'all historically have played Baylor and did it again. But when you look at testing yourselves against those two programs in particular, I felt like, was that by design to really say, hey, we've got a really challenging non-conference schedule, and I want to get these guys ready for any and everything that we see?
Well, I think raising money for anybody that we can help is always a priority, and we're thankful to be able to be a part of that. But I do agree. I think you can look across all of the college basketball, whether it's secret or not secret, or they have a buddy in the media that tweets out the box score, or however all of that works. I do think the last 2 weekends have been great learning opportunities for us. We played Baylor in what is supposed to be a secret scrimmage. It was their turn to come here. And then we played at North Texas, where the head coach, the current head coach of Texas Tech, had been the head coach the previous 6 years.
Yep.
It was very much a road environment. We did not win. We lost by 5. I know it wasn't streamed, and that's part of it's secret, so to say, other than the people that buy tickets. But there are so many lessons that come from both. And a lot of what we learned from Baylor, we were actually better yesterday against Texas Tech. And some of the things that weren't brought to our attention against Baylor are staring at us dead in the face this morning. So what I told the team last night was we're ahead of schedule in regards to the lessons that we need to learn relative to what's in front of us over the next, 150 days. And that's hard, but that's also what you want if you're trying to compete at the highest level. And so not everything is going to go good, and how are you going to handle the good things, and also how are you going to handle the bad things, because 2 days later, 4 days later, there's another test coming. And so the last 2 weeks have been good for our program.
Talking to Buzz Williams here on TexAgs Radio, you talked about being ahead of schedule. Can you kind of maybe give us the playbook version or the quick version of how you go into a season and how you build upon certain parts of the year to be ready at the end to be at your best?
Well, I think what's forcing us, David, to do things differently than what we've ever had to do. Everybody talks about the returning players. We understand that. It's a special time because of that. That's hard to do in the current model of college athletics. The flip side of that is we also play 8 games in November. 5 of those 8 are not at Reed Arena. And so all of the things that are about to potentially transpire, all the special situations, all of the unique opportunities that we haven't been in since last January, February, that's coming to us in November. And so we are foolish as a staff if we don't contrive situations in practice and practice situations that we know could happen over the next, 30, 45 days. And so we're trying to stay ahead of schedule, and that sounds good, but actually that's probably what we have to do in order to be in a position to have a chance to be successful.
Let's talk Henry for a moment. Back to the basket play, how important that is going to be for him this year, especially, I think, put on a little bit of size, too. Is that correct?
His weight fluctuates probably more than any offensive lineman playing in the NFL. He is our most vocal player. He plays with a very high IQ. on what we're doing on both sides of the ball. He anchors us a lot because he's going to do right, but at the same time, he can help his teammates do right. He's okay back to the basket. What he's best at is putting pressure on the rim. Whether he has the ball or doesn't have the ball, he puts a lot of pressure on the rim because of his size, as you mentioned, because of his strength, because of his athleticism. We were tremendous yesterday on the glass. Phenomenal. But Saturday against Baylor, we were awful. And Henry was a part of awful, but he was also a part of being very good yesterday. And so he's important to what we're doing relative to pressure on the rim, but also being in a position to keep the ball from the rim when we're on defense.
Buzz, I don't know how it's possible, but I feel like this offseason, just kind of what I've read, what I've heard talked about, maybe even what we've talked about, I feel like Boots Radford has been like because, SEC preseason player of the year and Wade, and we talk about Henry and Julius. We always like to talk about any newcomers on any of the A&M teams ever, and I think that's all college basketball does that. What does it mean to get Boots Radford back for another year, for not just for you personally, but for this basketball team?
Well, he's a Swiss Army knife, and he's hard to take off the floor. I would not necessarily say that there's any part of his game that you look at and go, man, he's elite, he's the best. Mm-hmm. But there's also no part of his game on either side of the ball that you look at and you go, man, he's bad. Yeah. And I think all good players, when their evaluation is an intangible, it makes them hard to get off the floor. What Boots is really good at is helping your team win. And sometimes that's making a shot. Sometimes that's getting fouled. Sometimes that's guarding the best player. Sometimes that's getting a traffic rebound when you're wondering how in the world did he even put himself in a position to get it. Boots is hard to take off the floor, not because he's the best at anything, but what he is really good at is impacting the final score. And he's vital to what we're doing on both ends of the floor. And in truth, when he plays well, it's probably a good game. Yeah. And when he doesn't play well, because we're so dependent upon what he gives us in all of those different categories, when he doesn't play well, Texas A&M is not going to be near as effective.
Talking to Buzz Williams here on TexAgs Radio. Buzz, let's talk about Wade. I know he's gotten all the preseason accolades, but where do you want to see him take his game here in his third year under your system?
Well, I think for us, his turnover rate / our turnover rate, when you're talking about offense, is critical. We lost yesterday because we played with too high of a turnover rate, and many of those turnovers were live ball. They scored a lot of points in transition, and so coaches want to talk about transition defense, and that's a critical component of any team. But if it's a live ball turnover, it's probably going to be a dunk on the other end. And yesterday, not because Ford turned it over. Ford only had one turnover, but our team's turnover rate was too high. So the first thing I would say is it's critically important that Ford plays with a very low turnover rate. I write our guys this card before every game, and it's kind of like my words to them on these are the things that I want you thinking about. And the one thing I always write on fours is one turnover or less, and we prefer less. Simple is better. Because he's such a dynamic player and he can score at all three levels. We need his scoring, but we also need to know, the other four guys need to know our team's going to get a shot. Because part of what helps us offensively is the pressure that I mentioned that Henry and Solo and Andy and those guys put on the rim on the offensive glass. And so when we don't get a shot, obviously we didn't get a shot. Obviously we didn't put ourselves in a position to get an offensive rebound because we didn't get a shot. And we didn't put ourselves in a position to get the opponent in foul trouble because we drew a foul. And so when it's a dead ball turnover, you don't like that, but at least your defense is about to be set. When it's a live ball turnover, now all of a sudden no one was prepared for that, and it's in a broken floor, and you're probably at a disadvantage at that moment in time. And so 4-4, we want him to play with an incredibly low turnover rate, lower than he's ever had. But we also want our team to play with an incredibly low turnover rate because we have a higher ratio of good things happening, at least if we get a shot on the rim. And then I wouldn't necessarily say that 4 would ever be categorized as a great defensive rebounder. But what I would say is within how we play defensively, he's always all over the floor. And he is very smart. He has an ultra-high feel for how we play on both ends of the floor. And we need him to always be in great defensive rebounding position. Not necessarily he's going to get it, but we need him to be in great defensive rebounding position because over the last 2 years, the thing that's hurt us the most is we don't finish enough possessions defensively with a rebound. And we need our guards who were just absolutely as bad as you can be against Baylor. We need our guards to be in the mix relative to their positioning for defensive rebounding. And then yesterday, our guards were probably diametrically opposed to that against Texas Tech. And so those are two things that may not come up in the stat sheet all the time for 4, but they're very important relative to our team's success.
I feel like you're coaching through these interviews as we're talking. I feel like we're getting coached.
This is what I tell our guys. This is what I tell our guys all the time. Hey guys, do you think when I talk to the public, do you think your mom's listening?
Right.
And they look at me and they go, "Yeah, coach." And I said, "Okay, do you think that I think that because I'm very technologically unsound, like I have a high turnover rate when it comes to technology, do you guys think I should be thinking that you're listening to what I say in post-game or what I say at the radio show or what I say at TexAgs?" "Yeah, coach, why? You think we're listening?" I said, "I'm just saying, like, I have to be thinking that when I speak, you're listening, your mom's listening, your mentor's listening, your coach is listening, a recruit's mom's listening. Is my mom listening?
My mom listens.
What I should do is I should always just tell the truth, right? So if I say it to you, I should feel comfortable saying it to Liucci.
Yeah.
But what I have to pray about and make sure I handle the appropriate way is I cut out all the emotion, because that's where head coaches get in a bind. Is everybody wants to talk to you after you just went through a 3-hour ringer and they weren't emotional, but you gave all of your emotion to that game, and that's where I've got to improve. Is I've got to be I've got to be emotion. I got to have emotions, but I can't be emotional.
Yep, that makes sense. Well, I'm going to take you out of coach mode for a second before we go and ask you highlight of your off season. What was the most fun thing you did? And then secondly,
thanks for asking.
And I also want to hear about this Spotify thing. I saw it.
Yeah.
I was out of town. I saw it on Twitter. That's right up mine and your alley, and I need to hear about that before we go.
Well, so I'll answer that question first. It was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Kenny Chesney was texting me in the summer, and he was asking me if I would be a guest DJ on his radio station. And I was like, well, Kenny, I don't know, like, if you really want me to do that. I go, I don't even know what that means, but that doesn't sound like something you would want me to do. And he goes, no, Coach, I really want you to do it. I really want you to do it. So this fall, he reached out to me again, and he goes, Buzz, I want you to do the guest DJ hour before the season starts. And I go, okay, well, where do I go, and how does this work, and where's the studio? And he goes, because I know you're busy, I'm just going to send my people to you.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, well, just pass them off, pass me off to them, and then I'm going to give them to Josh. And so Josh and Kenny's guy, they got it all wired up and kind of told me exactly what it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually like really fun.
Yeah.
It was really, really fun. And, you know, like I've never been a DJ, so I'm not saying I understand how it goes. But, hey, Buzz, pick 16 songs. You can say whatever you want to say. Play 3 or 4 of your favorite Kenny Chesney songs. The other 12 or 13 can be anything you want them to be. And say whatever you want, and we'll record it. And then we'll tell you when we edit it, when it's going to be on the No Shoes Radio. So I was really stiff and a little anxious the first 3 or 4 songs. And then I kind of got the vibe relative to what the producer was asking of me. I was better the next 4 or 5 songs. And I think the last 4 or 5 songs, I kind of felt like, you know, if I'm not able to coach, maybe I can get an AM station night DJ job. And so I was applying for that subliminally. But it ended up being like, you know, like I've been blessed with so many different things that you would never think ball would allow you to do. And it ended up being like a really cool experience. So I think he's supposed to, Kenny said he would text me sometime this week and let me know when they were going to put it on a show. But I guess they play it 7 days in a row. You know.
Oh, good. So it hadn't been out yet.
No,
oh,
no,
good.
sir. Because I couldn't. They didn't want me to do it live because when can I get there and when can they do it? So they just came here and just recorded it all. So it was fun, and I was a little like any coach would be. You know, like I was doing the scouting report and who wrote this song and when was it released and how can I tie this into the previous song? And so, you know, they had sent me like, I think it's been 60 over the last 8 years. I think they've done it with 60 different people. They've done it with John Gruden. They've done it with Peyton Manning. They've done it with, John Gruden, Joe Buck, Peyton Manning, Mike Vrabel, the coach of the Titans. They've done it with a variety of different people. You would know all of the people. Mm-hmm. I knew parts of them. And so they sent me this, they sent it to Josh, and then Josh gave it to me in a way that I could listen. But, you know, you can listen to how they did their show, so to say. Like Brian Dable, the coach of the Giants, did it. And, you know, like I was scouting, you know, I was studying,
I know
like,
you were.
I didn't like that. I can do this better. I should say it like this. And, you know, they want you to record a lot of different lines like, hey, this is Buzz Williams, the basketball coach at Texas A&M, coming to you in the guest DJ hour from No Shoes Radio. And, you know, like you record like 50 different lines, so to say, that they will kind of put into the show. And then they record the 16 different introductions to the song. And then obviously when you're recording it, you don't get to listen to the song. So hopefully it'll turn out okay. They told me that they would send me the final recording before they played it so I could listen. So it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun.
I when I saw that, I knew how fun it would be for you and how cool it was, but I also knew how seriously you take the challenge.
And I think it caught the guy off guard. Like obviously I didn't know him, and like he comes in and I've got a page for every song, and he was like, "Oh, Coach, you kind of already got it prepared," and like I could tell that his response was, I don't know how to talk to Buzz because I don't know Buzz.
They didn't know who they were dealing with.
Friends. Yeah, like Kenny and Buzz are friends, so I don't want to like offend Buzz. And so he was like, "Hey, Coach, you know, we kind of want it to be natural and just kind of flow, and we want your emotions to show." And so I got better, and I kind of loosened up is probably the appropriate word. I was just a little stiff because I was like, I want to do great. I want this to be perfect. It's the only time I'm ever going to be a DJ in my life. And, but I think as the show unfolds, I think I was probably a little more comfortable in my skin.
I think I've got an off-season idea for Buzz next summer. One day you should just come host an hour of the show. We'll kick Nuño out. You host it. Yeah.
I can do it.
I know. You could talk all sports, pop culture.
I don't know how good I would be in things that happen in the world. But if you want to talk about sports other than hockey and soccer and tennis, I'll be all right. I can for sure handle an hour.
Yes, exactly.
And could get some good guests on maybe. And so that way I wouldn't have to talk as much.
True.
Let's do that for real.
Buzz, you'll be
I
just
can do it, and then I'll be in charge of the advertisement. And instead of TexAgs getting the advertisement in that hour, then the people that I bring on as guest speakers, that's how I'll give them a payday, so they'll come on the show.
Exactly. I love it.
Buzz, thank you for your candor and the conversation, man.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Appreciate
Thanks.
you.
Have a good day.
You
too.
too.
Thank you.
Buzz Williams.
That was awesome. And I didn't even get. I wanted to.
The best part of the offseason.
Yeah. Well, remember, we'll ask him next week.
So he won't be on next week because they
2
play
weeks.
Monday.
Okay.
But we'll get him on the week after.
Perfect.
Yep.
Next Monday, is that November 6th? Or never mind. You don't have to look. Yes. Okay.
Thank you. All right. Let's hit a break here. We'll come back with more. It's TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Hi, we are back. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Billy, missing in action. That happens typically. He'll be back here in studio. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center where we find Jared Schultz. Jared, I know some text messages have been coming in. It was good to hear from Buzz, man. It's been a minute.
Yeah, I always love hearing from Buzz. I just love him in an interview. But I actually had a couple stats. I might wait for Billy on them. But TexAgs says that kind of just about our wrecking crew defense, just saying, comparing the rankings of this defense, especially third down, sacks, tackles for loss, says that it's kind of comparing them to our 80s and 90s defense as the wrecking crew.
Look, we'll see these next couple games, right? Like it's the defense has carried this team. I think the wrecking crew deserves a pretty good offense next to it. But there's no doubt about it. Their ability to get to the quarterback, their ability for tackles for loss, and all that play a huge part of it. So, Billy, my buddy Jordan's here.
Jordan, you have people that pop up in here, and I walk in and I wave, and I'm like,
who's this?
Pretend that it's normal, and then I don't know who it is. What's up, Jordan?
Jordan is the guy who's coaching me in jiu-jitsu and in
wow.
MMA.
We have a lot to discuss.
Yeah, thank you for Brazos Valley MMA. But he's my guy. We become buds, and he wanted to check out the studio.
Nice, perfect. Welcome.
He could destroy you in 5.2 seconds.
I would hope so, because if he's coaching it, I would hope so. That would be a bad coach.
He's
this
a
isn't
beast.
like basketball. We're like, I don't know, how good Buzz would be in basketball, or if Slosh tried to play baseball today, or Jimbo football. If you're actively coaching jiu-jitsu, I feel like you still need to be really good, and you need to be able to beat 90+% of your students.
And he's also in his 20s, so he's still young. So, did you? And we're not going to get into any of the subject matter of how bad I am at jiu-jitsu. We're just going to pretend like I'm still really good at it.
I was on a jiu-jitsu, MMA, fighting, combat sports deep dive this morning.
Were you?
I just got caught in I would say this morning, I couldn't sleep. I got caught in a Instagram reel.
Oh, yeah.
Deep dive.
What'd you find? Tell me more.
Just everything. I was just watching highlights. I ended up watching the whole fight the other night.
Mm-hmm.
Or I watched that yesterday, the whole fight.
I saw Adesanya posted just yesterday his first boxing match, and apparently he lost. And he's like, this is not real. Like the way people, the judges, and what you can and can't do. He goes, I like real fighting where you can use
When did he?
I guess before he got into kickboxing, he
it.
tried real boxing, and then he's like, nah, I'm more of a kickboxer. So anyway, let's. There was a text. There's some stats that Jared wanted to get into that he wanted for you to hear. Let's go back to that angry elephant in Houston Social Center, Jared.
Yeah, we had a text come in kind of asking about Donovan Green. And so then I pulled up some kind of rushing statistics. So last season in 2022, we averaged 4.6 yards per carry. And this year we've actually declined.
You talking about Le'Veon Moss?
What's up?
Was he asking about Donovan Green or Le'Veon Moss?
There was just a text about Donovan Green from earlier. But I was just wondering, like, the Aggie rushing attack has declined from 4.6 yards a carry in 2022 to 3.9 in 2023. Do you think that maybe Donovan Green not being around has an impact on that rushing attack or that rushing block?
I think
or what?
Devon Achane going to the NFL.
He interrupted. He was asking me.
Oh,
that
it's
was
a team.
An easy answer.
It's a team show.
I don't want to say anything negative about Donovan because I think that injury really hurt the Aggies this year. And like I said the other day, I mean, when he got hurt, he was A&M's best tight end. What he did last year was he had a potential to be an all-conference tight end this year. But I don't think blocking last season especially was his strong suit.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't think that position has done the job they need to do as blockers. I really think Saturday the running back blocking I thought was hurting without, you mentioned the running backs, without Le'Veon Moss. I think that's probably why you saw more of Amari Daniels later as the game went on, because I thought Reuben, he had the nice touchdown run, he had another couple nice runs, but it was the blocking that was getting him, as such an inexperienced guy, and that's a killer, especially when your O-line's struggling enough that teams say, you know what, we're going to get aggressive and we're going to blitz and we're going to bring numbers. And so I think they really missed Le'Veon in that department.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Donovan, like him as a blocker last year, I don't think played a big role in that rushing total being high. I think that was 1,000%. That difference in numbers has to do with Devon Achane, without question. And they even had some Saturdays with Achane where they struggled to establish, a potent running game.
And honestly, that number wasn't that different. 4.2 to 3.9.
Yeah.
I expected it to be more dramatic.
And that's
it was 4.6 last year.
Okay, that makes more sense then. Yeah, because especially with that outburst at the end of the year, and but yeah, that to me, you see what Devon Achane's doing in the NFL before he got hurt. You lost, I think, along with Bijan Robinson last season. I think those were the two most explosive tailbacks in college football.
Yep.
And Achane got lost in the shuffle because he was on a sub 500 team. But speaking of guys being out, this A&M defense I want to go back to from the standpoint we talked about a minute ago. I think you saw on Saturday just how much they were hurting. They could have beaten Tennessee last week with every single mistake they made, perhaps, if you would have had Edgerrin Cooper in the second half and Bryce Anderson for the whole game. And I know, they also might have lost 14-13, the rate that game went. But I'm just, for them to hold Tennessee to one offensive touchdown without Bryce, and you saw how good. Go watch Alabama and go watch South Carolina. It doesn't have to be just because they're playing a bad SEC team Saturday. Go watch Bama. Go look at how impactful number one is defensively, and then we don't have to say anything about 45, how he's playing. And they played the entire second half without both those guys, the whole game without Bryce. Those were two really significant injuries, and for them to go into Knoxville and hold that offense to one touchdown. Kentucky's a pretty good defensive program under Mark Stoops.
Your two best defensive players?
Quite possibly.
Close.
McKinley in a different way.
Yeah.
But yeah, quite possibly. I wouldn't argue anybody that said that. But you watch Kentucky, Kentucky's a good defensive program under Stoops. I don't think this is the best defense they've had by any stretch. But to go in there and play that defense playing at home, and Tennessee scored, 33 or so on them, and they produced one offensive touchdown against the Aggies without those guys. This defense is doing some pretty special things. It'll be interesting because you have to face Ole Miss this weekend. You have to face LSU at the end. Mississippi State's not bringing a lot of offense to the table right now, not at all the last couple weeks.
Without Will Rogers.
And then Abilene Christian. Yeah, and what's the timetable for Will Rogers? Has it been?
He's TBD.
Yeah, so he could be back, might not be. It's 2 weeks away. But the numbers, this thing could hold up. If you assume that LSU is going to, do this, I don't mean they're going to light A&M up, but they're going to put up numbers for sure. They do it against everyone. And you assume Abilene Christian's going to do this. Ole Miss maybe this, Mississippi State maybe. I think these numbers will stay pretty consistent with where they're at, and I think they have a real chance to lead the SEC in defense by season's end. My real question is, how does this defense play this weekend?
Yeah.
They're number one. They're going into Oxford, and I said it yesterday. Lane Kiffin, if you're on the A&M defense, Lane Kiffin clowned you last year. And what I mean by that is he ran his mouth about running on all those five-star defensive linemen. All those guys should take that very personally. He popped off to Bryce, called him a name that I can't say on air. I could say on a podcast. We all heard it. We all saw it. Jimbo and DJ Durkin, with the fact that they ran for, I forget what the rushing total was. It may have been almost 400 yards in that game. It was an outlandish number.
It was over 400. 390, excuse me. It was
390 yards at Kyle Field. I mean, there should be.
Do you think they're being reminded of that this week?
I don't know if that's. I know they do that to a smaller extent, sometimes stuff on the screens during the week and bright, but I don't think that Jimbo's way is to get them just lathered up into just it builds all week and it's a Saturday frenzy, because I think there's so much teaching that goes on during the week in terms of getting ready for that game. But I don't know. Maybe DJ Durkin does. I mean, the defense meets as a unit, I think, more so than the offense does.
Anderson has not forgotten.
Yeah, he mentioned that during the summer. I think a lot of these guys hopefully have not forgotten. It's like we're sitting here talking about jiu-jitsu. It's like, you get knocked out by somebody unexpectedly in the – like you mentioned Adesanya. is he going to go fight Sean Strickland? Is he going to be scared to fight him again, or is he going to be doubly motivated because the way Strickland picked him apart and really embarrassed him in their last fight? Are you going to – I think you have to have that fighter's mentality, and I hope the defense does, and I hope they get after it, and I hope they put a hurting on Jackson Dart after those guys stood on midfield last year at Kyle Field, took pictures and stuff. And like, I mean, look, it's sports. I don't mind the trash talk. I don't mind it. I don't even mind Lane Kiffin saying it after the game. I just want to see A&M do something about it.
There needs to be a
I think
response.
it's immaturity on his part. I think he's an insanely immature head coach. But I do want to see. I do think when you win, you get to do that.
Yeah.
And when your team comes to Kyle Field and you run for 400, you get to do that if you choose to. I prefer a coach that doesn't choose to. A little shot here or there is fine, but what he did took it over the line, and guess what? You get a chance to do something about it.
On their field.
They're locking the cage. You're playing out there on the field for 60 minutes. Here's your chance.
Yep. Let's hit a break. We'll come back with more. I want to go around the SEC and some other A&M football hits to talk about. Right now we're talking about Heritage Films. That's my buddy Chance McClain's company. I talked to him over the weekend. That dude is just always thinking of different ideas, and he's just a grinder out there. He makes documentary films about your family, right? So you got a grandfather, you got a dad, you got your own story, right? That you want to preserve that story in a Netflix-style, HBO-style, A&E-style documentary. Chance McClain can do that. We did it for my pops, 2-hour documentary, and it was awesome to watch him talk about escaping Cuba, meeting my mom here in the States, and starting this family here. Very emotional to be able to watch it with him, with my kids, and then later they're going to be older and they're going to be able to share it with their kids. That's the beauty of a heritage film. Documentaries done at the highest level. He also does a Year Flicks, which is a shorter version of the same kind of video, 20 minutes, more Q&A form, and it's reserved for the younger kids, right? So if you're 13, 14, 15, maybe documenting part of your life in a Q&A form, or maybe your freshman year to your sophomore year to your junior year. What are your likes? What's your major now? Things that you're into. He'll put it all into this awesome film through Year Flicks. The website is yourheritagefilm.com, yourheritagefilm.com, 713-893-8341. Again, that number is 713-893-8341. And we're back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Rollo Insurance Studio. Billy's in here for two. Actually, this has got to be the shortest. We're going to have 2 short segments because we went long the last one. I did want to go around college football with you quickly. Anything? Okay, the USC game. That defense can't stop anybody, and they're going to
the Grinch.
They're going to have a couple more losses out there.
That's a move he's going to have to make,
or unless he leaves.
If they would have lost to Cal, I mean, could we see Lincoln Riley and Jim Harbaugh both in the NFL next year?
Yeah.
See, to me, Lincoln Riley, I wouldn't be. I just don't know if an NFL locker room would really care to listen to that guy. Like, there's just something about the energy he gives off that it doesn't come off to me as football guy energy. And you don't have to be like Dan Campbell or Bill Belichick. You know, there's 2 extremes there, but just, you know, they give off in different ways. They're football guy energy.
Yeah.
But I just think Lincoln Riley in an NFL locker room, I don't feel like that plays. Obviously, it does Jim Harbaugh. He's already done it and proven it, and I think that's a foregone conclusion. I think Michigan's going to be in the coaching market after this year, which is really interesting.
Do they get invited to the college football playoffs at this rate?
I haven't studied up enough to know where that's going, but does that move fast enough to eliminate them from it? That would be fascinating because that's a probable spot. They probably beat Penn State and Ohio State this year. Not for sure, though.
Yeah.
Not for sure. Ohio State, we've got to give them a little credit and Ryan Day some credit here because they don't look great. But they're winning, and you know, going into Wisconsin, and they got tested, and they won by 2 touchdowns. They played Notre Dame. They pulled off the miracle late. They played, they played Penn State. It was a defensive struggle kind of back, and they just kind of put some distance between them. They're starting to get the feel of a team that's they're just gonna do that game after game, and Michigan's owned them so much the last couple of years that maybe this. This is payback.
We've talked about what Texas could look like with a backup quarterback. They're not in that situation. Take that BYU game out of here. Moving ahead, this Kansas State game is a real game.
All of a sudden, K-State, Kleiman's done a great job of improving them. But this is a legitimate. This will be a legitimate test for them. I'm glad that they got one on the schedule with their backup QB because the other ones won't be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know when Ewers comes back or what, but BYU certainly was not. That team's hot garbage. Iowa State is hot garbage. TCU is hot garbage.
Texas Tech
is hot garbage. So that's, again, I've said that before. That's the difference between the SEC and the Big 12, and Texas is going to benefit tremendously from this. And the last team in their path might be an Oklahoma team that just got beat by Kansas with their backup quarterback. Enjoy it while you can. I don't fault you for taking advantage of it. The best thing that happened to Texas and Oklahoma, and I think Texas has done a better job of building their roster and getting ready for the SEC. They've also got one of the absolutely elite NIL fundings, and a lot of it's been done by one guy. Texas A&M is among the elite too. That's not I'm not throwing shade. I'm not saying it's unfair or anything, but they're taking advantage. But the biggest advantage they've had is to claim the SEC for as long as they've been able to do on the recruiting front while playing a
in the
Big 12 schedule. And
Yep.
they beat Bama this year.
They deserve
and
that.
they get all the credit for that. But outside of that, they haven't had to prove anything. And, hey, it is what it is. You take advantage of it and you go with it. A&M had advantage of being in that league for a 12-year head start.
Yeah.
And they couldn't quite capitalize. So it is what it is. But this weekend will be a good test because K-State's figured it out. And that quarterback's nice, that young QB.
All right, let's hit a break here. We'll come back with one final segment. It is TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Check. Hello? And we're back. Hey, that was awkward. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Last segment with Billy here. So we've talked hoops. We talked a little football. Overall, hopefully this is a personal game for the entire team, but the defense, obviously.
Yep.
And this is where you can change. This is the kind of game you can change the narrative of the season.
No question.
You win this game. All right, now 9-3 is in play, right?
Yeah.
You lose this game. This is who we thought A&M was.
You lose that game, you're going to be highly likely. You'll be a considerable underdog on the road at LSU to finish 7-5, and you got to still beat Mississippi State. I think they're on about the level of South Carolina, and that game could have been closer than it was had it not been for the Aggies that second quarter finish. But man, I'm telling you, this is an opportunity for this football team this weekend. And we'll talk a lot more about it throughout the week. Maybe I'll come in for a little bit tomorrow too.
Okay.
It's a real opportunity for this team this weekend. And there's a lot to play for, in my opinion. And there is. It's not my opinion. There is. In terms of just how the program is perceived, in terms of what you can do, trying to bounce back. Let's not forget they were 5-7, and I'm not sitting here to tell you, hey, they went from 5-7 to 7-5. Or they went from 5-7 to 8-4. But if they can do that and be 5-3 in this conference after going 2-6 and basically playing your whole conference schedule without your starting QB, go beat a top 10 Ole Miss team on the road, snap that whole road thing. And then, oh, by the way, you probably go into LSU with 4 straight wins after a couple losses, including a top 10 road win. So that's a tall order for them to climb. They're going to have their hands full in Oxford, and we'll talk more about that as the week goes on. But it's a tremendous opportunity. They went out Saturday, and they just handled business, much like they did against Arkansas, much like they did against Auburn. They handled business, and they won an SEC game.
Thank you, Billy. Appreciate it. Thanks to all of our guests. That's it. We'll see you mañana.